Oh, Mother Nature. And for everything she has given us. One of the artists in the order to get ready what's going. That's how to get me to me to get it now. They just want to get the questions. I have to get it to the next. Now I have my duty, and if I've forgotten anything, fix it up within your mind. Now it's all the good, thank you, and I see Martha. Yeah.
Ora da bilohi da Deus para se senhora. As you have seen over the last few days, that the creation story is not just something of a long time ago, it is something of now. That the great law of peace is not just something that is there once we established it amongst our nations. It is something that is there throughout creation. From the beginning of time, like the creation story, the Beyond Recital Goa begins at the beginning of time, the beginning of creation. And so you may think that, well, as there is an order, like there is an order to us, like we're one and then we're two and then we're all of a sudden we're passing from this world. But that is the order to us, but yet even when we are one, our body is complete in law. Our body is complete in creation. Not that we are done growing yet, but all the elements or power or energy or whatever it may be is all there from the time we are a baby. It's what makes us grow, what makes us come to travel this journey here. So, as you've seen sometimes in the creation story, some things may have, as he says in the opening, if something is forgotten, you fix it in your mind. So we are the mind, we are the collective energy, the collective brain. And so if something is out of place, we fix it in our minds. Like if you forgot something, you say, oh yeah, what about the cloud? Well, you fix it in your mind, and then somebody may have something of great importance that you are compelled to remind of the cause to the collective, if it is of pertinence. Of course, it's all pertinent, but when the opening is done, that if there is something forgotten, usually the person would mention all things, gather all things. But it's just to identify that again, we may have to reach back to remind here. We may have to reach in the future to know how we're going to build from here. So it's not to say that, okay, the creation story is just there, the formation of the league is just there, and the law is just there. They are all intertwined. And so there are things that will be taken all the time. From the creation story to the formation to the law itself will be taken all the time, and it may seem like you're taking something out of place or rearranging it. It is not that way. Sometimes, as you know, as children, when there is trauma, the children have to reach into their future to all of a sudden grow up before their time. You're not supposed to be thinking of adult things when you are a child. But yet again, because of trauma sometimes inflicted upon children, whether it is physical or spiritual, that those things cause the child to have to grow faster. Okay, you know what we're going to have to do? Move that forward. Yesterday I got really hit me hard. I got a headache. I'm not going to have that happen again today.
Maybe you guys are get smacked out over here now.
So before we get started, There are things that are currently happening in the world that you may not consider them to be in order of the things of which we are speaking of. But these things are in order. If something is coming apart today, then we have to reach back into the past to see what the proper order of these things are, to know how to fix them, how to heal them today. So before we get started, we're just going to talk about what may be on your minds after everything that we went through with just the creation story and the formation of me. It is a lot for you, maybe for you, I don't know what you are receiving. But when you are, like myself, you try to incorporate everything that's in that thought. But sometimes a big thought may have all the intricacies. Let's say there's 100 parts to that thought. You might leave out a part here and there, but it is encapsulated in the overall thing. But sometimes those intricacies, of course, are very important, and these intricacies may come to each of us in different ways in our dreams. And so apparently last night was a very active dream night. It was for me, and other things happening in the world would spawn dreams or reactions in people. Some of these things in the world, it's undeniable as to what is happening. We can say, well, what's happening in the so-called United States has nothing to do with us. Of course, it has everything to do with us. It's in our house. If there is a maniac in your house, it has everything to do with you. There is a maniac in our house. There's been a maniac in our house for the last 500 years. He's an insane, retarded, murdering, thieving, crazy maniac. And what people like that do is everything precisely what those words describe. And so when that guy is loose in your house, if you hear him stirring, if you hear him moving around in the basement, well, that's time a signal for you to maybe, if you got to do something in the living room or on the second floor or in the attic, it's to pay attention to these things so that you are, like us, still able to stay alive. Because you know that this crazy, insane, murdering, thieving, insane maniac is set out to kill everything here in Turtle Island. Not just here in Turtle Island, but to kill everything. This insane man is out to kill all that his mother has created. And every construct that he has created throughout time is what is part of his mechanisms to carry out his destruction. Again, all the religions that he's carried out, it's all mechanisms of destruction. All the so-called education that he's carried out is designed to carry out his destruction. Everything, right up to video games. When we talked about the other day, I forget in what context or whatever, but we talked about when man started going down this path of violence. That at first it may have been a simple stick, hitting each other with a stick. And then when we learned that, well, if I got a stick and I'm hitting him, he learns that, well, I can hit him without him being able to hit me because I got a stick. I got a longer reach than him. So he learns automatically that he's got to get a stick also. But that would put us on the same ground. So he knows that he's got to get a bigger stick or something that he can throw. Like we said, started going to throwing rocks, throwing spears, arrows, all of a sudden, machine guns, atomic bombs, laser beams, all kind of crazy stuff, weapons of today, of which most people are not even aware. Now the weapons do not even have physical mass. They are not even a physical thing that you can see any longer. The weapons are beyond that now. They are within nanotechnology. They are on the scale of the very small, whereas right now we can't even see that if there was a nanobot, it could be a fly. You would think you're seeing a fly flying by you. You would not pay attention to it. That fly lands on you. It could put a poison in you that is like a time bomb. This is what they've done to Hugo Chavez. This is how Hugo Chavez was killed. He did not die of cancer. Yes, it looks like cancer, but the cancer was inflicted upon him, and this is that island where he was released. The world seen that as that it was an attempted coup, a failed coup. It was not a failed coup, it was a success. They killed him. And as a result of killing him, the only sentinel standing at the door to Venezuela, now the door is open, and this is where now you see that crazy, insane, murdering, thieving, insane maniac, which is the United States, so-called United States. Now they're there kicking in the door of Venezuela. So the people of Venezuela do not even know the weapons that have been used upon them. These types of weapons have been used on our own people. This is what was used on lasagna. This is what, of course, when you see somebody against the Canadian military all over the world and everybody around the world is influenced by that, they cannot have that. And so this is how they took him out also. But just to identify that there are unseen things now that we cannot afford to overlook. And when we see patterns, if we cannot see those unseen things, but when we see patterns developing, then we know there is something at the source of those patterns, something that is causing these things. So when we look right now, what's happening to that insane maniac, what's happening to him in our home is that he is starting to consume, like we identified about 5-6 months ago, that now the monster is going to start to consume his own children. This is what is happening now within the so-called United States, but not just there. It is happening everywhere that this crazy, insane, murdering, thieving, raping maniac has gone. And what's inflicted by it does not know that they carry a virus. Everybody is carrying a virus. Last night, or whenever, Elizabeth sent me an email about, what was it called? An So, but it was the undetected mental illness, something like that. Undetected mental illness. You can't detect it because it's not something that you see on the body. There's no rash that you break out in. There's no physical uh, symptoms of that. But the symptoms is the behavior. And like she just said, that this is what we thought. This is what we knew when we seen the white man, that we knew the white man's mind was broken. That his mind is just not no longer like it's no longer a part of creation. And so it's no longer a part of creation, but it's here in creation. And we know what he is doing here in creation. And so we know that we can see patterns developing as a result of this. For us here, we've seen these patterns for 500 years. I mean, whether you are here now or if you were here 500 years ago, if you were able to be here 500 years ago, you would have heard us saying, "You are insane." If you're here now 500 years later, you'll hear us saying, "You are insane." It has not changed.
That word to be insane, that word was used, and it's called the Hanu. Well, it was men. Men were here first. They had no women with them, so they said the Hunu Warawoya, which means it's like if they're, when you mix something, their brains are mixed. Scrambled, yeah, they're scrambled. So you see a perfect egg, and then it winds up that way anyway in your body. But when the brain is not working properly, because it's not in its spot it's supposed to be in, because the brain is well split up. And already the Oklahoma, the Gahaga, and the people of the Five Nations had already been talking about the brain, and that's what the Jesuits said. The light went on in the Jesuits' brain was because they were writing often back to France. I guess on a boat you go back, and they said These people are very intelligent. They thought they came from another planet because they have no schools. There's no schools set up where everybody goes to the same school. But they can't see a school anywhere. They thought they were hiding them from it, you know? Like all of us can't go to the University of Laval or something. You gotta have money. There was no such thing as money. But they were learning, they knew about the brain, and this was one of the fears, and they said these people are possibly come from another planet. So they were just afraid of us. Because in Europe, the only people who knew about the brain, because they kept some people just in the fields farming, who was probably where all the brains was. It's what kept them alive. And some people just went to school. And they went to school and they learned how to destroy the planet to how badly it's destroyed now, or infected. Let's not say destroyed as infected. So that word, do you know what I want? Because I'm a teacher, I'm teaching adults now, and I said we should do a whole semester on just the brain. And I know we'll go well into the next semester because there's no end to it. It's like the brain, it's like our thoughts. There's no end to it. It only ends when we pass. But if we pass it on to younger ones, you're still not dead because your thoughts are alive. Good thoughts are alive as well as bad thoughts. But we, with the good thoughts, got to remember that that's the balance of life. We don't like it, they don't like us, but as long as we're on balance, life goes on. If one side wins, does anybody ever really win in a war? No. But anyway, I just want to say that when he said about somebody being crazy, is they know what I want. They, they have scrambled brains. It's what it is. Now, thank you.
Okay, now that you said that, I wasn't leading into this. I was leading into something else, but it's still all part and parcel. But now that you say this, I'm going to pass this paper around, and when it does come to you, show it in front of the cameras. Later on, we will explain this completely. But when you get a fast look at it, you will know right now of what he is speaking of. This was a rendition of the council process of the nations, which I done. I think it was around 2000. It was in 2007. Yeah, 2007. It was at the law recital. I made this drawing to just as a visual to show people as to exactly what he's saying. But what he's saying right now, I didn't know that at that time because of the way he's saying it from the language. I just knew it because of the council process. So right now, for me, here is uh, pay attention over here. Who's the firekeeper? If I gotta be firekeeper too, and this too, that's too much. What was I saying? Those that it falls off, it's going to catch fire. The bigger wood will not catch fire. Uh, okay, right now, what he said and what it brings to light is just further substantiation of that. Like what we are learning in the translation of the law. We find that the language and knowledge of the law, when this is put together, that of course one affirms the other, but when one affirms the other, then that's two things that are carrying or expressing the truth, and those two things, of course, will grow into something bigger. And so, anyways, just as when he was saying this, it reminded me, and I'm lucky that I have these documents here with me. But this document, this drawing is from 2007, and it's about precisely what is identifying about the brain and how the schooling process, it's not in a school, it's in the council. It's in the council process of the people. Because it is the process of gathering the minds, and like we said, when the minds are gathered, you're in the collective brain. And when the collective brain is there, when it is functioning, then absolutely everything is knowable. Absolutely everything is uh, understandable. That you can decipher all things in creation, not just here upon our Mother Earth, but all things in creation. And when we consider again that a molecule within your body is a derivative of your body is a derivative of our Mother Earth. Your Mother Earth is a derivative, our Mother Earth is a derivative of our solar system. Our solar system is a derivative of our galaxy. Our galaxy is a derivative of the waterverse. The waterverse is Sky Woman. So when we put our brains together, all things are knowable. From anything here on Earth, from within your body on Earth, to the waterverse, to Skyrim. Something on the far end of the waterverse, something that you can't even really imagine what it may be, what it may look like. When we discover it, it is not something that will be unknowable. It is something that will be completely knowable to us, completely decipherable. We will and can understand it when our collective brain, based on Guyana Recital Goa, is functioning. And as long as we, each particles of that brain, is in its proper place and not, like as you said, scrambled. This is what is in the white man's mind. The non-native's mind is scrambled, where all the parts of your brain, if you could imagine, you know that there's different hemispheres, there's the amygdala, there's different parts of your brain. That if you had grown out of a particular part of the brain, that's the element where you may be and find yourself in the amygdala, which is where all the women in this world today find themselves because the amygdala overpowers when something is scrambled. When the brain is scrambled, the amygdala will be the thing that remains intact. And so the amygdala will be can easily overpower the rest of the brain. And when we consider that the amygdala is the self-preservation. It is where all violence comes from, where all aggression. The brain is scrambled to, and the one thing that remains intact is what is in power of the scrambled brain. And so all women in the world, all the world, everything, the Sky Woman herself is subjected to this insanity. And so where I was taking this is to identify the current insanity, but it is a perfect fit as he identifies about the brain in this sense. Because now we have this image in which to look at, which may or may not help you to understand things a little bit better. But when it was created for that purpose and intent, to be able to envision, not just to hear about it, but to be able to visualize it. And when we are able to see it on a piece of paper now, to visualize it, it helps, it assists. Now imagine, if all the people are there physically, imagine that you would not only be able to visualize it, you will be able to be in it. You can navigate it. You can instantly, when all the elements of the brain, all the people are there, you can instantly know the entire brain. You will instantly know how not to be scrambled in the brain. So, anyways, the end result of, or what I was addressing, was that when we start off with that person was fighting with a stick, you know that the intent from there, the technology of the scrambled brain, was to create a stronger, better weapon to be able to kill your enemy or your perceived enemy, kill everything more efficiently. And so we take that when we consider that first, long time ago, in the non-native world, just like us, maybe it was a bow and arrow. Well, now imagine back then, somebody was thinking, imagine if I had a bow that could shoot 100 arrows at once. Well, this is where we are today. Machine guns. We all know that what happened over the weekend, that there was shooting in El Paso. There was, I think, 23 or 20 or whatever. A lot of people were killed just like that. A lot of people were injured just like that. And the death rate is still rising. And then, like not even, I think, 24 hours later in Dayton, I think it's Dayton, Ohio, somewhere in Ohio. If I'm wrong, it is a reality of what happened. That there was 9 people murdered, and there was, I believe, 13 injured. And that means, of course, the death rate is rising. Now, about Dayton, there was a woman on the news. I don't know if it was a news anchor or if it was a public official, whatever. She emphasized, in under a minute, she says, in under a minute, he killed 9 people and injured 13 others. That is insane. Now imagine if you didn't have that weapon developed and somebody came into our midst and to kill. You know that they're not going to be able to kill 9 people in under a minute. Let's say if they came in here with a knife. It could be hidden. We wouldn't detect it. We would never expect. Somebody could come and sit right here in our midst, and they could just lean over to talk to you, and you would lean over, and they'd just poof, and kill you. The rest of us would see it. They might be able to maybe hurt or maybe even kill 1 or 2 others, but the rest would be able to respond immediately. So we know that there is crazy, insane people, especially like we said. We know it because our house has been invaded by the crazy, insane people for the last 500 years. The crazy, insane people populate all of Turtle Island from as far south to as far north as you can go. You know that they are crazy. They are insane. They develop the methodology of how to kill the women. Would you develop a technology to kill? No time for that. Would you develop a technology to kill people at a rate where you could kill 9 people in under a minute, where you could kill 100 people, where you could kill, like today, there is a crazy anniversary marking, how many years is it? There's a crazy anniversary marking the anniversary of when the crazy, insane people, all they had to do was push the button and kill over 100,000 people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is the anniversary today. Now imagine how we woke up this morning. Some of us, all of us, I imagine, we woke up in a good mood. Some of us maybe had maybe a little bit tired because there was stuff happening around here last night. There was motion. The motion around here is not just a motion that is happening here. If there is a loud boom in the world, that ripple will go throughout the world. And even if you do not hear it on the other side of the world, the effects will hit you. And it will cause things to stir. Just like as we identified, I think it was yesterday or whenever now, we talked about those 2 neutron stars that in 2017 that collapsed into themselves, or whenever it was they collapsed into themselves. It was detected in 2017, and the gravitational wave was felt here on Earth from something billions of light years away. So, you know that here on Earth, when there's a crazy, insane thing happening that stems from that scrambled mind, that everything on earth is going to feel it. The birds are going to feel it. The birds are going to be afraid. All living things will be afraid. But when the human brain is disconnected from the collective psyche, then we are disconnected from our Mother Earth. We are disconnected from those gravitational waves, disconnected from those natural things, that web of life, that we can be able to detect things. But if we're disconnected from it, we will not detect it until it hits us. And when it hits us, we will not understand it. We will be seemingly crazy also. The scrambled brain will also scramble our brain. And so, 2 nights ago, first thing we seen, yeah, this mass murder in El Paso. We wake up the next day, this mass murder in Ohio, Dayton. And then we wake up today and we see that in Chicago, the hospitals closed the doors. They started turning away patients because over the weekend they had too many shooting victims. The hospital could not handle the influx of people being shot. So they're just saying in Chicago, people being shot. Well, apparently it's not like a mass murder, or doesn't look like a mass murder, because there's somebody being shot over there, somebody being shot over there, over there, over there, over there. They're seemingly not connected. Well, you get them to the hospital, and then it's connected because the hospital can't handle this influx of people being shot all over the place. Is that mass shootings? Damn right, that's a mass shooting. But because people are disconnected from the collective psyche, that they don't view the reality of what the reality is. They're isolated, like the academic world today. Funny, no, not funny, coincidental that he mentions about the schooling. It's the schooling that actually disconnects our brains. The schooling is the poison that has poisoned the minds of the non-native people. It gets you, tells you as a kid. First off, one of the things that we identified the other day, I think I asked Francine the other day about if she remembers when her kids were in school about being exposed to those poppies, selling poppies. To remember of World War I. This happens in school. She did not teach her children this at home. It happened in school. So in school, the government puts poison in the minds of your children that you would not put in the minds of your children at home. And so every mother in this world sends their children off to school. Here, go, get away. And the mothers really, no disrespect to the mothers, but really, all the mothers are happy. They're rid of their children for the day. Yeah, rid of the children. Yeah, they can have peace of mind. You can relax. And you look at what happened in the non-native world from there. When your children are gone, we're not talking about right now, even in your time. We're talking about we're going back to the last 100 years when schooling really kicked in. And what happened is, of course, since the women were under the oppressive conditions you were under, well, you're in the cities, your husband's at work, your kids are going to school. What are you doing all day? Nothing. You know what you ended up doing? That man who created these circumstances for you created something to keep you from going crazy, because not just because your husband's gone, your children are gone, but you're living in the crazy world. Living in the cities, living in the suburbs, what do you do all day? Go shopping. So they created the consumer society. And this consumer society is a crazy society, and you know that it makes people crazy, so they created something further from there to keep the women in a state of chaos. They created your prince, what they called through the 50s and 60s, Prince Valium. They created Valium for you. They drugged you. And so you were happy that your kids were gone, and then you were shopping, and then you found that it was crazy and it wasn't enough to keep you stable, and you were just going more crazy, so they gave you a drug. You've all heard of Valium, right? You all know when that came about, right? It came about in the 50s, after World War II. And so now, all of this, which you never consider in your world, for some reason, you just do not consider the realities of what are happening to you. Which, for me, makes no sense. I cannot comprehend that mind. Which, from what he identified, where we are in a collective brain. You find yourself not in any brain. You find yourself just scrambled to the point of where now, if you were a woman in Chicago, you'd be worried for your children because if something happened, because your children are getting shot in the streets there, at parties, at the movies, going to school. If you were a woman in Chicago, you'd be worried more now for your children because the hospitals cannot handle the expansion of violence. So all women in Chicago right now, whether or not there is an awareness of this, whether or not anybody is saying it, all women in Chicago are sinking into a deeper state of psychosis. They're sinking in a deeper world of craziness. And when you sink deeper into craziness, it's harder for you to keep your sanity. And not only in Chicago, now the people in Dayton, the people in Texas. But is it just there? No, it's everywhere. That crazy man went. It's everywhere, not just in the United States. It's all over the place over here. You don't hear about it over here in Bolivia. You don't hear about it in Ecuador. You don't hear about it in Chile. But we hear these things because we hear of our family in Chile, the Mapuche, and others who are getting killed, shot out of helicopters with machine guns mowed down. You know what happens when you are a bad person? You can be bad for a while and think you will get away with it. But there is a rubber band effect to things. And when we look at the expanse of over 500 years that this insane man that comes from across the waters, since he's been in our house with his insanity, you can think 500 years is so long that you can't connect the first thing to this thing that's happening right now. Well, you can't, but we can. And we know because we have been observing you for 500 years. You do not know anything about yourself. Hasn't that been proven here just in the discussions we've been having? All the things that we give reference to, you know nothing about it. But the things we give reference to is things from in your world about you. Knowledge about you. You don't have knowledge about you. Why is that? Can I tell that my face is dirty? I can't tell. But you can tell, right? And if my face is dirty, maybe I got a big blob of spit hanging down my chin, you will be sitting there laughing at me. You won't say nothing. Well, you would, but in the world, you won't. Because in your 60-story apartment, the person right next to you, you're hearing them screaming and yelling at night. You know the woman's getting beaten, the kids are getting abused. You don't say a goddamn thing. That causes a further disconnect out of the collective brain. Which means that everybody through that schooling system is becoming dumber and dumber. There is a process, a scientific process to how we have ended up in these circumstances where you find that you don't have an enemy outside that is shooting at you. You are the enemy. That crazy, insane man is the enemy of absolutely everything in creation. And he didn't come from here. We know where he came from. So we follow his tracks back to where he came from. He came out of Europe. But the particular one that came here stepped out of Britain to come here. Now, did it originate in Britain? No. It originated through that corruption in Europe. It is a white, European, male-dominant human experiment that is being performed upon all of you. It is in your bloodline. It's been there forever. You may not like to hear that, but you look back in your own history and you can see crazy corruptions, just like what Guayabero said. You were forced to the fields. There was no alternative for you. And it wasn't proper fields of where you could cultivate. It was killing fields. That's what you were forced into. And when you're forced into that, you become dehumanized. When you're dehumanized, you don't have access to a human brain. You don't have access to the collective psyche of our Mother Earth. And so we must be truthful with ourselves. If you go to the doctors and you tell the doctor, oh, it hurts me right here, and the doctor asks you, well, what did you eat? If you know you've been eating cheeseburgers 24 hours a day, are you going to hide the fact from the doctor? Are you going to say, well, I've been eating good. I've been eating healthy. I've been eating salads and good food. Are you going to lie? Question. I would guess you wouldn't lie. But you know what? That would be your response. The same way that you all sat there when I asked the question, that would be your response to the doctor. It is a reluctance for truth. It is designed into you through the education system. Again, we'll just give that one example about how the schools lie to absolutely everyone on earth, to your children every day. You know you sent your children to school to get lied to. You know that. You sent your children to get lied to. So did he. So did I. I sent my children to school because we had no choice. We wanted them to learn Ganyangeho because I do not have the language. So I had to send them to the immersion school where they got all lies. So much so, Mohawk immersion school. A black woman is the principal in a Mohawk immersion school. Imagine that. Don't do it.
Seeing we're talking about education, I'm in education, and I talked to a lot of different teachers in the Ganyangeho field, and somebody would say, what do you think's the answer? And Arizasna has the answer. Not all of Arizasna, but there's one school in Arizasna that right now, as we're talking, and all the other kids in Arizasna are outside playing, they're in school. They have a whole different system where they go to school. I could be wrong because there's probably somebody from Zasna listening. But they go to school 6 weeks, then they're off 2 weeks. They have the same amount of holidays, but they go to school and they're learning in the language. So if you take the kids, don't go home, the kids out of school, all the medicines are ready and ripening every week. They're going to miss all that because they're at the pool or they're playing with their video game somewhere. That's why, like sometimes, these kids that came here last week, they're from camps. Those parents are good to have those kids come here to learn, especially about the people of the Wangan, because they're going to have a story when they go back. Because every teacher says, "What did you do this summer?" And they'll tell them, and they'll say, "Oh, you went to school. No, it was part of the camp. Don't go to camp. It's great to learn how to make a fire, blah, blah, blah. But let's go learn about all our foods are here. Let's just say, well, we'll take a bottle of water and we'll go just eat grasses. This morning I ate 5 different kind of grasses, wild apples. I don't buy apples in the summer. And I was told one time that eat as many wild apples as you can. When you see a tree in someone's yard, go knock on the door and say, "Could I have some apples?" And they'll probably say yes. They don't poison them. And eat the seeds. So these are the things we got to keep teaching people. Right? This morning, look, our medicines are right around us now. They're all here. We have I don't know all my medicines, but I know quite a bit. But in the way we do things over here is you have my medicine. I don't know. No, but what somebody in this circle has my medicine. They say, "Oh, well, he's helping people, but you can't help yourself. You can, but somebody usually has the key to another medicine." So these are the great times, this time of the year, when everything is starting to ripen and the fruits. But we got to keep the kids out in the field, learning to eat grasses. I take my little boy for a walk, and he's getting lazy because he has a computer. So I just pull the plug out, and he's reluctant. He makes all kinds of excuses. He says he has a sore leg. I said, "I'll carry with him." No, I can walk because he's independent. Then we go along and we start picking grasses and we eat them. So we've been doing this now for 3 years, but I'm careful not. I say you can't eat everything, just this with this. And he realizes them purple things there that for endurance. And I said, "Hey," I said, "Well, he speaks French and Ghanaian." And I said, "Did you get candy?" And he said, "Oh, there's no candy." But he's looking around. He's looking for a gum wrapper. He's got a piece of candy in his pocket. I know that. And then I take some, eat it, and he eats it. And so now, last week we go for a walk with his mother, her boyfriend, and his son who's staying for the summer. So they're leading the way. We're just watching them, going for our walk. And he takes this boy who's 2 years older than him, and he says, he's learning English now. So he says, "This is candy." And the kid, he says, "That's not candy, it's grass." He said, "No, no," he says, "it's that purple stuff." So he takes it off, eats a mouthful. And he says, "My Bubba told me." So he said, "I'm not going to eat it, and Stephanie will take some because I taught her about these things." And then this boy will try it, but it didn't come in a wrapper. You see, he's already, I love this kid. His name is Alex. And I said, "Alex, there's a lot of stuff out here." I said, I haven't brought you to my house." I said, "We have stevia," which I don't know who was with me the other day, but we had stevia. It was Elizabeth and Mary Code, I think. And I have all the stuff for in the morning. When I finish my bicycle ride, I come back and I start picking the grasses, clover, eat them, the clovers, the vines. You got to really watch those. It's the fresh growth. You can almost see through it. I had a couple of fresh apples, and then I'm ready to go. And I got here, just brushed my teeth, and it actually cleans your teeth too. You wonder why you never see cows with a cavity. Well, they don't eat candy, number one. But eating grass all the time, that chlorophyll does a great job cleaning your teeth. But again, if you're into pharmaceuticals, you don't want to tell people that. You got to come to me. You got to look at Brad Pitt and his $36 million smile. Well, I like Brad Pitt. He's not my cup of tea, different from me. But he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. But he's making what? 50 cents on every tube of toothpaste? There's a lot of teeth in this country, and a lot of people who are stuck to TV and movies. Anyways, this is the time that we got to take the kids out, go out, learn something. And in the schools, we got to start saying, well, let's reschedule. They were supposed to do it in town, here in Ganawaga, and then the teachers, "Oh, that's my time off." Well, for me, I'd stay. Even if it, yeah, I'd stay for the summer because actually when it's boring for me this summer because I got nothing to do. I mean, I have a lot to do, but I like to teach. And within the language, if I could take a whole bunch of kids that weren't even, then yeah, by the end of the summer, they're going to know something. And then yeah, but we have to teach our children again the medicine, and we're having a tough time with that. And we were talking about the brain. Okay, years ago, back in the day when Hoover would find a white man, he'd attack him, and of course the white man had a gun, we didn't, so we finally overpowered him, and then we took we didn't know it was his wife, just it was a woman, we took the woman and the children, and we changed their thoughts. We changed their minds. They had to learn a different way. They lived amongst our villages, within our villages, learned how to fend for themselves, probably talk another language. And at one time, there would be trade of human beings besides furs, because the French and English would capture some natives who were. He's a blonde boy, blue eyes, and he's talking to me. Yeah, doesn't know his language anymore. Doesn't talk English or French. They say, "We'll trade you this blonde boy for that brown-faced boy who's speaking English or French." And they say, "Well, we have to." But the Oklahoma said, "We have to do this. The children have to decide. We can't decide for them." And a lot of times, this blonde kid would not want to go back. Say, "I'm staying," because maybe he had an experience different from where he came from, depending on his age. Yeah? And there was women who just flatly refused to go back to and stayed with their captors. Would you call them captors, or was another word? Because when somebody saves you from hell, they're not really your captors, are they? There's another word for that. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to use the word savior because we're going into the place I've gotten out of a long time ago. But anyways, this is the It's right when we have a council. It's we're not. We're trying to change their mind to say we will try. We will try to change each other's mind for the good, not the bad. And at the end of the day, like I always say, sleep on it in the morning, you wake up and you come up with a decision. If I ask you right now, just by numbers, to say, I'm afraid to answer, to tell you here and get all these friends, and you know what I mean? Go sleep on it, and then you, when you're given your chance to speak, say, well, this is how I feel. And I have to respect your decision, because you can influence me also. Thank you. No.
Okay, you know what that would be? Given like what Elizabeth brings to light through her email about that there was an illness in the non-native mind, and we detected that. Okay, we wouldn't be their savior, we would be their doctor, that we would heal their mind. And this is the reason why, when you know that if you're ill and you get healed, if you're ill because of where you are in your surroundings and you're better somewhere else, well, you wouldn't want to go back to those surroundings where you get ill. You would want to stay where your mind is healed. And so this is why all of the women that came here, when they escaped from their illness and they were with us and the people were the women, were the authority, there was no women that wanted to go back. The women that did go back, they were stolen back by that society. And they went back into their illness.
What it was is when you meet somebody, say you had 1,000 we're back in the 1600s. There's 1,000 men and there's about 1,000 women with them. Well, we got to fight. We're going to fight to the death. There's no other. The scene is set. But we got to kill those men, whatever. Some will surrender, and you're going to take them. But you'll take the whole families with them, and the ones that die, die. But the whole thing is, see, we can kill all those men. We could kill them all, but we didn't kill the thought. And the thought is what we can't kill. And that's what we gotta on this planet is to kill that warring thought, that warring mind. So let somebody live in peace. You know, you got these warmongers. Let them live in peace, and you'll find them hanging from a tree because you can't live like that. And as Kadhi was saying, because women are in the force, they're that way. So they wouldn't think twice to kill men. For what reason? They probably have some, but so it's that thought that's got to be put away. So you've got to put people in a loving atmosphere. Once you've always been in battle, and then you see love. There's many loves, but if you accept it, there's no more. You don't have to worry about cringing your back when somebody walks behind you. Then you're healed. But there'll always be that thought there that's there. So we got to keep spreading it around like one of the thoughts of our love medicine to one another. And it's for all of us. It's not just for one people. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. What you just said there about, if you're in war all the time and then all of a sudden you're in love, they carry still that war mind and they're designed to kill. But if they're not able to kill, then they're in that like lack of killing place. That mind will go crazy and it will actually cancel out itself. This is what we are seeing happening. Anybody, tell me if this is not so. Especially people in the military know this, that many people in the military who were in Afghanistan, who were in Vietnam, who were in World War II, many people end up killing themselves once they are back home. Many of those people end up killing the other people around them. There was, if you recall, I think it was in Sacramento, I don't know how long ago, I think it was within the last year, there was an ex-Marine that went on a killing spree there. Because he's designed for killing, that's all that's in his mind. And if he's not in a place where he can't kill, he's either going to kill himself or kill others in the process that is going to end up killing. So there is a very delicate process here of healing the mind, of doctoring those people who were found, who we discovered on our shores to be sick in the head. A very delicate process to healing. The only thing we could say when we look back, some non-natives might say, well, hey, look, you war too, you killed us, we killed you, it was a mutual thing. It's not a mutual thing. You got to be crazy to think like that. You know when it would be a mutual thing? Is if we would have met in the middle of the ocean and we would have started fighting and we would have just kept sending more and more men there to go on war. That would have been a mutual thing. If we would have went to Europe and started killing, and you started killing us back, that would not be a mutual thing. The same way that right now, the so-called United States having their military all around Iraq. It is not a mutual thing. You cannot call it, even if Iraq instigated the fight. You cannot call that a fight or a war that Iraq instigated. No matter what, Iraq is in a position, and everybody else in the world also, who is victimized by the war dogs of Britain, which is the so-called United States, everybody is in a position of having no choice but to defend themselves. Now, if you kill in defending yourself, you are not the killer. Somebody comes and forces your hand, if you have to kill them, you are not the killer. You have been forced to reduce yourself out of your level of peace, out of your level of your comfort zone where you live. You have been forced to reduce yourself to the insane mind that stems out of the so-called United States, which was exported over here from Britain, which is a disease of all of Europe. Of, again, the white, male-dominant European human experiment upon all life. Uh, okay, so we know of these things that are currently happening. And it's more than what we know. The only thing that we are seeing here that we're aware of is what's being shown on the news about the United States. But it's because the news is controlled through that place, through the insane man's corruption. And so we are not seeing the real news. You are hearing, hey, that insane person is killing himself, he's eating his own children. Yeah, that's what you're hearing. But you're not hearing the real news about how that insane person is, what he is doing to everything south of that border, all the people south of his imaginary border, into so-called Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Central America, and into so-called South America. All of this poison is caused directly from the United States through the CIA, through their insatiable appetite for human blood, to wash themselves in human blood, like that little kid said when he was in that teepee speaking to us. We received the message about the reality. That insane man has to wash himself in human blood. And so they are causing all kind of crazy things which you're not aware of. You don't see it in the news about the policies and the programs and the money that the insane man in the United States is sending into those countries. If you recall, just I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, the CIA dumped over 5,000 illegal weapons, automatic and illegal, for on the streets here, dumped it in Mexico. We only became aware of it maybe a year or two after because it leaked out. You would never have heard about it. So you only heard about 5,000 illegal weapons. Let's say they came and dumped 5,000 illegal weapons here right now, right in front of us. We got to worry about it. None of us are going to pick up those weapons, as far as we know. But what will happen? They start squeezing us, squeezing us, squeezing us. They cut down our cornfields. They cut down access to water because that insane man in that country called the so-called United States creates corporations. People like to protest against corporations. You are crazy for protesting against corporations because a corporation is yourself. And so that insane man creates this corporation so he can disconnect. He creates cognitive dissonance within him so he can disconnect from feeling guilty about the things that he does. So he creates a company called Nestle. And he exports that company called Nestle into Mexico, Honduras, into all other countries in South America. And that company, through the monies that are called economic development that is given to those governments then make deals with Nestle that gives them exclusive rights to their waters. Of who? Of the indigenous people, of the original people. So there goes their cornfields, there goes their water, there goes their food. What do? They're all squeezed together. When they're all squeezed together, they start fighting. Eventually, somebody's going to pick up that weapon. Because when we're stuck in that scenario, we're all going to die. So we're all going to think, instead of all of us dying, well, I'm going to save my family. And that's where, you know what? Where this guy, Pablo Escobar, where he finds himself a victim of that crazy, insane man that is rooted in the so-called United States. Well, maybe Pablo Escobar is crazy, insane also. But again, if somebody comes and forces you to kill, are you a killer? Or are you a victim of that killer who reduces you to his state? And then once you're reduced to his state, because he is the man, he is the original killer, when he sees you doing what he's doing, he will then criminalize you because it gives him more power. And as you see, it gives him more money. Because Donald Trump said what? Take Pablo Escobar's money. That should be our money. Blood money. Blood money for them to wash in human blood. And this craziness is happening all over. But first, 5-6 years ago in Mexico, they dumped these 5,000 illegal weapons. And then there's always been these killings there because of drug cartels and whatever that are created out of the so-called United States. But once those weapons are there, then you hear of more and more crazy atrocities. Because people can be more atrocious once they have the weapons that insane man has created. And the next thing you know, the United States does trade with Mexico to give Mexico missiles. And nobody in Mexico said anything about it as far as we know, because we don't hear the real news. But over here, we said, what the hell does Mexico need with missiles? There was nobody invading Mexico. Well, the United States knew we got to give them missiles because we are creating this chaos in Honduras and Central America that is going to cause this influx of people to try to run away. And you know where they're going to run away to? To our land, not to the United States. Because the United States is just a frame of mind. It's a frame of mind that's called insanity. So those people aren't running away to insanity. They're running away to try to survive. But insanity is there and then blocks them from getting to a place where they can survive, which means that all of these people that are caused in the chaos that the United States created to run away, they are all going to all of a sudden find themselves bottlenecked in Mexico, where now Mexico, the government, is saying that, and people are saying, well, these immigrants are better off if they're just killed or if they go somewhere else. And now the people in Mexico are saying, kill those immigrants. Well, how are they going to kill them? With those illegal weapons and with those missiles that the government of Mexico has. Who else is Mexico going to use missiles upon? Are they going to use it on El Paso, Texas? Which they should? No. They're going to use it on the victims that the United States has created. And they're going to play the dirty work for the United States. This is what's coming. You're going to see complete all out, which is going to look like civil war. It's going to be just all out chaos. Like what is happening in the United States? Isn't that chaos? That's what they're exporting. Look at it, it's all over. It's there in Texas, it's there in Dayton, it's here in California, it's here in Chicago, it's in Detroit, it's in Oklahoma. It's everywhere. So the people don't realize when they play this insane game of economics that what is actually happening is they're not importing into their countries what's the term here? Economic growth, prosperity. They're not exporting prosperity into other countries. They're exporting the poison. And the president and whoever else of Mexico and these other countries are stupid enough to accept it because they line their pockets full of money. And they do not care that their people are washing in blood. Their blood is washing that crazy, insane man in the so-called United States. It's their blood that's rushing. They're just too stupid. And yes, I say stupid, to realize what they are a part of, what they are accepting. And that comes through the OAS. That comes through the Monroe Doctrine, which came through the colonization. Again, which comes from Europe, which was exported here from Britain. Nobody follows that trail. Everybody just looks at where we are today and tries to say, oh, how are we going to deal with it? And in Chicago, the police chief said, we got to do something. When are we going to put an end to this? What does that mean? If it's everywhere around the United States, how do you put an end to it? There is only one way. And this is what we have been identifying to you. Martial law. They are creating the circumstances so they can lock you down completely with martial law. If martial law happens in the so-called United States, you think it's not here in so-called Canada? Because don't forget, Stephen Harper made an agreement with the so-called United States that the United States military does not need to have any kind of consultation with so-called Canada for them to come into so-called Canadian territory anytime they want. So for border security, homeland security, they will be right here next door to you. They will be in your house. Now the proof of this is that they are already here. You don't know how, but before you see it, who do you think is going to see it first? We will, the original people. Now, you know, when we seen Homeland Security here, you got no clue of this because you do not care about the truth. You care about what you see in your manufactured news. You care about going shopping, consuming, getting rid of your kids so you can go and do whatever the hell you want. But where it happened, and so-called Canadians, you should be up in arms about this, is, let's see, when was that Minnesota thing in Grand River? That was over 10 years ago. Whatever year that was, I think it was maybe, yeah, over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago, in Grand River, in Six Nations, the people were fighting against, same thing as here in Oka, Ganasadaga. There in Ganasadaga, it was a golf course expanding into our territory. Imagine if you were here right now and you seen bulldozers come and trying to expand Chattagee into our yard. What would you think? You'd think, hey, what the hell? That's them coming in the summer of 90 with that golf course. It doesn't look like it's army and killing and death and all of that. But you force a golf course, you force an ice cream stand, the people are going to stand against it. And when they do, that's when you come in with the people done with apartments in Grand River territory on land that is clearly, according to the agreements that they made with their queen, clearly reserved for the people of Grand River. So when they forced this to happen, what happened there is that a good friend of ours was present at this protest, and there was a big skirmish because there was OPP and CSIS and FBI, CIA were there. You just know FBI and CIA were there. You don't know that Homeland Security from the so-called United States was there on that site. How we know that is because when our people are fighting against it, one of the friends that we know, that he went in the skirmish because they had their trucks there that they were using against our people. And he went into that truck and he took that truck and he moved it out of there to get it out of there from doing harm to our people. And that's where he's seen on the front seat of that truck that it was all their documents and it was their identification of Homeland Security. That's the United States. Way over the so-called border, because Grand River, it's close to the border, but that's way over the border. If so-called Canada cared about its borders, the moment that Russia stepped foot in 1 foot into so-called Canada, there would be hell to pay. What if so-called United States, without any authorization, step foot over the border? Would there be hell to pay? You would not care. Back then, you would not care. Right now, you do not know, or at that time, I mean, you did not know what it meant, what it was leading to. It is leading to your martial law that is coming from the skirmishes that the United States, the CIA, is causing over the so-called border, southern border, into Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, all Central America. Now it's causing you to be prepared to experience martial law here. You were being prepared for it. You just couldn't see it. You kept your eyes closed when you were seeing Quebec. So-called Quebec has the testing grounds for how to manage mass protests. How much policing and martial law was actually tested out here on the ground through the mass protest, through which was all contrived education, through those schools, where all of a sudden those people in those schools were out there in the street protesting against what? Against their government. I think at one time the most was 500,000 people, 500,000 people marching in the streets. And if you've seen that video of that, the news video, when we seen it, we said, look at how stupid these people are. They were all funneled into part of the city where there's like a massive, if the street is St. Hubert Street, where they're funneled into, where there's like big concrete walls. It's like it goes under an overpass. So all the people were funneled into that. They were tricked into that. They were too dumb to know, to realize what was going on, what they were doing. But then you look at all of a sudden, those leaders who started those protests, where did that guy end up? In politics, in that government that he was protesting against. It's contrived. He was a plant. You don't know how to tell when there is a plant amongst you. Because the brain, like he said, is scrambled. So we end up in the circumstances where a firecracker, has just been placed under your rear end. It's a time bomb waiting to go off.
The other day I went fishing. So I haven't gone for a long time, and I just wanted to go see what kind of plants were there. So I took a fishing rod, and I'm looking around. You know when you see something strange, I've been looking at it for 68 years. I walked over the bridge, the lift bridge. As soon as I walked over, there's a sign there that says La Salle, both sides of the train tracks. As soon as you cross over, you get off the bridge, 100 feet, and says La Salle. I said, what the hell is this? They sell the island? You know, I don't go there anymore. I used to go there all the time. I was there all the time as a teenager. But I remember when I was a kid, a teenager, and we used to walk across the bridge there back in the day. And we get in there, and if you went, there was a train station there, it's still there. And you would see a sign, and it was written in Mohawk. And it was written in the language, which was one of the first times I ever seen anything written. And it says, you are now entering the only Seguto Jinu'isa, that where you're standing is Kahnawake territory. Kahnawake, though it was written. And now I've never been back, but now I think I'll have to take a walk there and see if that sign's gone. But that was way in about a quarter mile range. So that was our land. And I could never, I know it's all our land, but why would they put a sign there? And then I was working on a movie one day, and I was working with this woman who was just slightly older than I was, and she says, "You're from Guatemala?" I says, "Yeah." She says, "When I was a kid, she lived where the Dominion Bridges," and she says, "Well, my father came back from a council meeting, their council meeting. So some guy raised hell, and he says, let's build condos along the shore." And this is something I didn't know. This was a Quebecois woman. I think she was from the St. John Baptist Society. No, she was working on a movie, that's right. And she said, my father came in, my mom, they started talking, says they were having coffee, after a meeting, and everybody was saying, yes, no, yes, no. And one guy says, well, he says, according to law, was one of the treaties that they had signed, was the Cognawagas had to have so many feet of shore all along the island to park their canoes. So that's still our land. I mean, still ours, but what happened to that? So does anybody know any Freedom of Information Act? If it's gone, somebody sold it. Somebody has to have their name on the bill of sale because they can't buy it from themselves. And who would sell it? It's short. It's the Queen, but I mean, the Queen can do it, but there has to be somebody from here who signs for the Queen. So that's interesting. You brought this up, and right away the light went on, and I said, well, I wonder if everybody, if the people in Kahnawake know that that's still a cell. So we have, if we're there, if I'm fishing, I guess if the cop came over, he could arrest me for not having a license. And that's where I met an Asian man, and he was a young man, and he said he had friends here in town. He says, "Can I fish here?" Go ahead, I'm not the local police. I said, "If I catch any, I'll give it to you." I said, "You don't have to give me nothing. You caught it, it's yours." I thought, what am I going? All of a sudden, I'm no worse than if I take the fish from him. What am I doing? I'm taxing him, which is right. Let him take it. He caught it, And, but anyway, that's that land. Now I'm really thinking, like, have you ever heard of any talk about them wanting to? They're supposed to be widening the seaway, making it wider. If they do, it can only go on that side. And this was talked about after 1990. My kid brother Joe, he's always reading. He showed me a Montreal Gazette, Montreal Star. I think it was still printed at the time, and they had the plan of all this shoreline. And they were supposed to be building a port in Kahnawake, right around where the survival school was. And they were going to build, and that's where they said they were going to make it X amount of feet wider, the seaway. But as I don't know if you know, the seaway belongs to the United States. It doesn't belong to Canada. So what Kaji Gonzalez was saying about CSIS being in Oswego, which is Brantford, it's no surprise. Homeland Security, well, they're all one of a kind anyway, They just wear a different hat. But there's like so much encroachment. I just wanted to make you aware of what I saw the other day. So hopefully everybody thinks about it. And if you have friends that know something, maybe you can enlighten us later. No.
I just noticed what I just noticed. This made me remember that what you're talking about is not exclusive to Ganawagi, about where the shoreline, that is the Buckshot Treaty. That Buckshot Treaty was made way before so-called Canada or United States existed. That was made with the British Crown. Now, it wasn't so much about, say, a treaty between us and them, but it was identified as a Buckshot Treaty. This way that the British North American Act is not between us and them, but it is about us, where the British North American Act identifies between them that there is no border for the native people. Not just for the Mohawks, not just for their allies, no border for any native people. And you know what native people means? Well, let's see. Well, here there's so-called Canada, so-called United States. You know there's native people there. So-called Mexico, there's native people there. Guatemala, Honduras, right into so-called Central America, no native people. I mean, there's native people there. In all these places, what it identifies is that there is freedom of movement for us. But big deal. That's what they say. So in order to get away from that, they have to not have actually somebody on our side selling it to them. All they have to do is have somebody sign it away, an agreement. This is the Seaway. Who signed it away? The band system. And we can say, well, who was in the band system at the time? We can pinpoint names. Hey, howdy doody. Cheyenne. We can pinpoint names who was in that band system at the time. Who was the guy that was in the band system at the time that the Seaway came through? It was Matty Lazar. But then, big deal, Matty Lazar. There was somebody before him. It doesn't mean that he was completely aware of what he was doing, but yes, he was inside of a corrupt system the same way that my brother was inside of a corrupt system. So anything that my brother did when he was in there doesn't mean that he had to know what he was doing. He knew he was in corruption and that the whole thing was designed for the corruption, the destruction of our people, and so that people, somebody's mother, somebody's father, somebody's grandfather, somebody's brother, somebody's son, done these things to us. The moment they signed for the Seaway, they got money. And the moment they signed for the Seaway, everything on that side is signed away. Now, years later, the moment the current mayor, Joe Norton, declares Guanawagate to be a free trade zone, well, then what does a free trade zone mean? It means anybody come in and you can trade here free. What does that mean? No taxes. But the band system gets maybe not taxes, but permits. Permit is a tax. They get money like they're getting from MIT, a $10 billion a year industry. Well, Guanawagate gets $50,000 donated to what is that called? A youth center. So this is the path of craziness here. And when you have the current mayor, Joe Norton, sign an agreement of self-government, which signs away everything that turns them into a municipality. Under self-government means that, well, all of your laws that you have here cannot conflict with the laws of the surrounding communities. As a matter of fact, in that self-government agreement, it's identified that all laws must conform with the Canadian Charter of Rights. So that means there is no reserve. Now, another sellout mayor like Joe Norton, like the one who signed for the Seaway, another sellout mayor, Mike DeLille, under his uh, mayoralship, whatever the hell you call it, in 2015, they made a law. They adjusted the membership code. No, not the membership code. They adjusted the what would you call it? The electoral code. They adjusted the electoral code where they said, that anybody running for mayor or one of the sellout positions of elected official, that they no longer have to have a Mohawk mother. No, I'll just ask the ones of you that are here. Are the Ganyaga matrilineal or paternal society? Matrilineal, which means we follow our mothers, right?
Yeah.
This is how you determine what anybody in the Five Nations Confederacy is. You determine through their clan. Where do we get our clans from?
Our mother.
From our mothers. So, when the sellouts within that elective system in 2015, this is just 4 years ago. This isn't 100 years ago in the past. When those sellouts adjusted their electoral code to say that you no longer have to have a Mohawk mother, what does that translate into meaning? We're assimilated into male dominance. And once we're assimilated, we are no more. And so now you can see a sign right there that says LaSalle. And when you see a sign that says Kahnawake, it's the municipality of Kahnawake within the structure of Quebec. This is the corruption, how it seeps in. Because when we look and we go back to the Seaway, was it necessary to move the Seaway from where it still is, going through Lachine, LaSalle, into Montreal? Was it necessary to move it here on the South Shore? Any one of you can go and look at the Seaway that is still there in Lachine, LaSalle, and Montreal, and you will see that there is still enough land, tract of land on both sides of that Seaway, of that canal, to still accommodate not just how wide the Seaway is here, but to accommodate the next expansion that they are talking about. So it wasn't necessary to come here. The Seaway is part of the genocide that came here. And when you know it's genocide, this is what happened. They dug the Seaway right there. What did they do with all the dirt that came out of this? Where did they put it? Part of it on the island. But what about when you get down in the farmlands? They made the clay hills. When you go towards the 132, you'll see that there's hills. When you come off the bridge, there's hills on both sides. Those are not natural hills. Those are out of the Seaway. So here, look, I get a cut in my arm. I dig it out, and the material that comes out of there, I put it somewhere else. If I want to be better, I got to put that material back in, right? I got to replace it. Got to put it back in. What did the elective system do? They put houses all over that land, making sure that the wound will never be healed. It's not the people who done that. It's the elective system. How was that opened up for that? Because when you and I were kids, well, when I was a kid, you were Seaway was opened in 59, which meant they started building it around 55. When I was a kid, when you were a teenager, that land where those hills are, it was the people could not touch it. How come? Because it was crown land. Designated crown land because it's from the Seaway. The Seaway expropriated that land. So here, if I expropriate everything within this perimeter, it's all expropriated land. It's mine now. And I just put piles of dirt right there. That's expropriated land. It's mine. So it's not just that tract of the Seaway that's expropriated. It's now where those piles of land, that dirt is. So
8 years old when you put, I was 8 years, 7 years old. I was 7 years old. My dad took my brother and I to watch them right where he stands. You could see, you couldn't go there. You could hear them dynamiting. My brother and I were little and we were impressed to hear these explosions. And how the tree and he says, like, I know what that is. And he says, the water coming through, and he was a tree, hot water goes around to a flood or something. And we could walk to the river, right to the river and fish. And then we went to the river, right to the river and fish. And then we went out in that area, and before you knew it, the Seaway was coming through. And I fell off the tree because I wanted to see the queen. And I fractured my wrist. And, never did see the queen. Not that it mattered. But you know, when you're a kid, you're impressed. Because when I went to school, the first picture hanging there was the queen, and we had it saying "God Save the Queen" before we started school. And we had our Union Jack. We had to color it every day. Every day we had to color it. We had another color. And in May, they had a maypole dance. I was asking Elizabeth about the maypole dance. You had to dance the maypole dance. You had to color out flags and dance around it. But you know how you are as kids, you're rebelling. And then kids, one thing about little kids, you keep going little kids. They love music, so if you incorporate music and play, and they're outside, you've won them over. So it's brainwashing. But this is what they made us do. You know, and that's why when I see the Quebec flag, those are all new flags. Even the Canadian flag is a new flag. They're all, but the first one was the Union Jack. But anyways, I'm going to switch the story now. 1990 comes around, and they took the tracks out. Remember when the tracks were being taken out? Saturday, and where I lived too, they took the tracks out. But I wasn't living there. I was still living over here because I was still married. So I bought land out there. So they said, well, okay, they didn't want me to move there. They fought tooth and nail not for me not to live there. And I went to see Mitchell Dell, and he sold me some land near the road. I said, I don't want to be near the road. I want to be in the woods. Well, he says, I have no land. They're all gone. And I left, and a week later he called me. He said, what are you doing? He's like, just got off the phone with my daughter. She lives in Toronto. And he says, she says, what's new in town? He says, oh, well, there. They came by, wanted to buy some land. She says, 7 months. I'm never coming back. He said. So he says, you want to buy it? I said, sure. So that's the property I bought. So I'm going to build a house. So I had my grandson come out. I says, I don't know where to put the house. I says, when is it Roger? Go stand wherever you're going to stand. It's going to be the middle of the house. So he walked around. I said, there was a swamp, because it's swamp, part of it. And he went to the high ground and he stood there. So I went in really bad, went over there, we put a pin in, and I called the contractor and I said, this is the middle of the house. So he decided where the house. I still have the pictures of him. He was this big. He's got a Yankee hat on. He was standing there, and he was so happy. But anyway, those skulls, and then I gotta get my, I build a house. And they says, oh, we're not gonna give you the money, but you're not gonna get the money. I said, "Oh, no, I'm supposed to. I don't need your money. I don't need a loan. I know when you get the infrastructure of the septic tank, they said, well, you gotta have your land surveyed. I said, what do you mean? There's the track. I got 2 acres of land. I got left. I got the documents. They said, no, you gotta get a surveyor. So I got a surveyor. It was Roy Correct. He came in and he found the thing 150 feet off the track. So he said that, because he's a surveyor, he says that all the tracks that run through an Indian reservation or native territory, the center of the track, you measure 100 feet, 150 feet each way. That belongs to CPR, CNR, whoever's got the railroad. So you know how much of that land? I said, okay. So I said, well, I'm hearing stuff. Is it true or not? So my neighbor is in English at the top. It's English, they call it. He started to talk. He says, you're my new neighbor. I said, yeah. I says, how come you got your fence here off the track? He says, as soon as they took the tracks out, he says, we claimed 150 feet. He says, this company, it's an American that owns that track there. There's Americans that owned it.
Yes,
Yeah. So he says, that's your land. You just claim the land. You just don't. If not, he says, somebody's going to just build right alongside you. So that's what I done. I get an extra 150 feet of land. But it's just for people who are lucky to be living on a railway site. But apparently some people bought land that wasn't even, that belonged to this company. That if ever they would have expanded, if 90 wouldn't have happened, they could ask you to move if they wanted to put another track. So you learn a lot of stuff when something negative happens, you know. You learn things sometimes to your advantage. And so this thing about what you were talking about, the seaway and stuff, I believe it that they owned, they probably own more than 150 from the middle of the sea. Because if that land's way over here on this side of it, that's why you can't build anything. Where Glendale around has this gas station, you can't put a basement in any of those buildings. You can only pour a slab because anytime they move, you just move the building. So why would that law still be in effect if you still don't own that land?
let me, I'll correct you a bit here as to what happened since the summer of 90 on those railroad tracks. The railroad tracks were not dug up in the summer of 90. It was just at the highway on the 138 where they were taken up from there. The tracks were left all the way. The track system was still there because it belonged to CSX. Because who dug up those tracks? It was the town that did it. Now those tracks were there for over 12 years. I think it was around 2004. I'm not entirely certain of the year, but my brother Kevin came to the longhouse and said, I got this idea. I dig up the tracks, take the tracks, and we're going to sell it for scrap, and the longhouse will get money. I says, no. I says, he wanted a permit. Like, so that you say that. I says, no. I says, we talked about it in council, and we said, we give you the right. You go ahead and do it. Then, it's like same thing, like tax. No, you keep all that money. And so my family went and dug up all those tracks, all the way from the Adirondack Junction, all the way beyond your house. And my brother Kevin actually started digging up the tracks in the Chattagee. But once he was there, the cops got him. But here, nope. All those tracks were dug up by my family. My family rid this town of CSX. So realistically, all that land, 300 feet, it belongs to my family. But don't worry, we're not going to come and claim it off you. That land was reclaimed for us, for Ganyangahaga. Yeah. It wasn't the town that removed those tracks. It wasn't the people. It was the longhouse that removed those tracks. And in the longhouse, it was in particular my family that did it. So you figure just for railroad tracks, 150 feet on each side, that's 300 feet just for railroad tracks. So a railroad is how wide I could step across railroad tracks from one track to the other. And when you figure that, okay, the wheels are this wide, but the train is maybe this wide, you need maybe about 15, 20 feet. Yeah, maintenance. But they say 300 feet all the way from Chattageek all the way up to what they used to call Petticoat Junction, at around that junction. And from there, you continue out to St. Gustav, which goes through the new developments, which, when you consider, uh, draw something. Quick map. I got Seaway here. I got the railroad tracks. I got the Mersey Bridge. So there's two bridges coming through our territory. So 300 feet off of these railroad tracks make it basically like that. 300 feet off of these, well, 150 feet both ways. Here. Here's the seaway. Uh, here's the bridge. Clay Hills were here. Here. So that means from here over here in the seaway, none of that is our land. Now, it wouldn't really do me any good to show you this because you wouldn't really understand. It's really for Lawyer Gerdo and myself. But this is the seaway. That's what they dug through our land. 6 miles. And so this is railroad tracks. The tracks is 150 feet on each side. That's 300 feet. So if that's how much you need for railroad tracks, imagine how much you need for a seaway. I don't know, I would be guessing. But when there's railroad tracks coming this way, it's also a 300-foot barrier. To dig the seaway, they put land here and here. You know that the land belongs to them, so all of this was claimed by the seaway. I know you can't make heads or tails of this, but it's really for the people here in Kahnawake that this was our shoreline. That's frozen.
No, it's
okay.
It's this.
This was, I don't know if you can see this. This was our shoreline into the so-called St. Lawrence. This is where they dug the seaway. This is the Mersey Bridge for cars. This is the railroad tracks, the bridge that Guayagero said he walked across. Now they say for the railroad tracks, three 150 feet on each side, so that means 300 feet all the way down where those tracks were. These tracks are no longer here. This is the tracks that my family took out. But you got these tracks that go out to Saint Coustan, so there's 300 feet. Now, when they dug up the seaway here, they put piles of dirt here and piles of dirt here. And this is a highway that they built here. So that means all the way from the river, all the way up beyond the railroad tracks is what was owned, so-called owned by the British Crown here in Gunawagan. This is not something that just happened. It was something that it took sellouts amongst us to sign for, to agree. Now, you consider this is the river, is where the tracks are. That is, let's guess. Oh, where'd he go?
There.
Where I get him. Let's take a guess here. From the seaway to the railroad tracks, 150 feet back. Let's take a guesstimate. How far would that be from the actual shoreline of the river to the seaway, to the highway, to those railroad tracks, 150 feet back? Approximately, let's guess, how far would that be? Or, let's just say this. I would guesstimate that we're dealing with approximately between a half a mile and 3/4 of a mile. You're standing at Glendale, you look across the seaway, the land there, to the river, and then you look from Glendale, you look to where the railroad tracks are, 150 feet past that. You're looking at approximately a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile minimum.
Well, that area where the gas station is, Glendale Road, there was a gas station before there. Remember, it was Shell. There's Shell's a Crown Corporation. Pretty well. It falls under that. And anyways, there was a French Canadian. I think they built a garage there right at first, and they poured the concrete, and you had it right after you had it built. They made him tear it up. That's when later Glenn moved there. That's called a development area. That's why they built that factory now, whatever it is. They just keep adding on to it. But that land, if you wanted to build something, start a business, if you had the money, you could take, but you could never own it. I don't know how that works, but I guess the people that own businesses there could tell you, if they'll tell you. Maybe you could hand it down to the family, that's it.
Anyways, to go back to what we were identifying about this long-term policy or this long-range plan. They did not need the seaway to come through Gunawagan. And again, right now, you will see, even if they want to expand, there is enough land through where the Lachine Canal is going into Old Montreal. There is enough land there to fit the current expansion. As a matter of fact, right now, what they're doing is they're rebuilding the Lachine Canal because it's historic. So now, because they're rebuilding it, part of Heritage Canada, they're going to say, it can't be touched. But, coming through Gunawagan, there's nothing historical about it. So if they wanted to expand, it would be through Gunawagan, but that's a false flag anyway. If you recall, way back in the mid-'80s, they were talking about building a dam, remember? They were building a dam near Valleyfield. And Gunawagan was up in arms. They had a big sign near Glendale, remember? They put up talking about no dam. This was stupid. We told all the people, you're stupid. if you're going to protest this dam, because they're never going to build a dam. It's a false flag to get us to react. Because if they built a dam, all of Lachine, all of Dorval, all the millionaires who got their mansions on the shore would all be wiped out. So it would never happen. They would be wiped out before us. Us would only be the stupid people who are dumb enough to hang around the fort. It would be just them who would be wiped out. But that dam was never a reality. Just as what they're saying now on expansion also is not a reality. So it's a false flag right now for us to preoccupy our minds with when they're saying they're going to expand this seaway. When you consider that if they were to expand it, you look all throughout where the sea was, other places. This is where all the millionaires are. This is where all the mansions are. They're never going to do that. They're never going to expand that. It's a false flag to get the people of Ganawagi to do exactly what they're doing right now. They're talking about, oh, there's an expansion. The bank accounts, the bank system, the mayor, the sellout mayor, Joe Norton, comes out and says, oh, they're never going to do that here. Makes himself sound good. Builds up to the people of Ganawagi. The people of Ganawagi rally around that and they support. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When nothing is ever going to happen. It's not planned to happen. Okay, what's going on? Okay, listen, if you're going to talk, nobody can hear you. You know that's why we got the microphone out here.
Well, I heard an interesting story during the Quebec referendum. I had friends of mine who were Quebecois, and they said that's why that vote was rigged. The Quebec couldn't separate. They probably won. But they said the one thing that all of people in Quebec didn't know was that the emergency plan, as they were counting the votes, people, I mean, it's supposed to be secret, but everybody knows every vote that's being counted. It looked like the Quebec was going to separate. They said they didn't know, they put emergency powers through at the time, which they could only do to the Queen. And they said, send all your money to Ontario and provinces around. That's why you have royal banks. They said Quebec would have been bankrupt. It would have had no money. And the Quebecers, even though they had billions of dollars, would have had no money if they would have separated. But the kicker was all Indian reserves, native reserves, were now would resort back to the crown. So the British could actually land their armies right on Ganawage, Aguzasne, any reserve in Quebec. And they could do that without because now the War Measures Act would go into effect. So they said, rig the vote or you're going to have a civil war, which I think they came close to it. And anyways, they said they lost, the money flowed back in, but they said that there was, like, the people in the financial district were shaking in their boots. The people with money, especially the English, because they held most of all the money, all the Sun Life. And after that vote, a lot of these companies, they just have a building as a heritage site, and they're all in Ontario now because they're afraid, again, that vote, which was actually lost, will be won legally this time, because even the Quebecois, that's why they want to join up with the Oklahoma to get that extra kick push over the top. I mean, we've been at some meetings where we're talking about it, but they can't leave you out. That's why you go home with them. They're not just going to go a second time and say, yeah, win the war with us, and then we're going to put us back on another kind of reservation. So all that's got to be established before all this happens. So whether we like it or not, we need each other. But these reserves, it shows that they showed their power when they said all these reserves would be all native reserves, not just Vanuatu, would resort to the crown. And apparently they had worked with the chiefs that they would kind of sign over crown, but with their treaties with the crown, give it back to the crown after the election. And that's basically what happened. And like the video was saying, all of a sudden we have millionaires on Indian reserves, where before $1,000 was our $1,000,000. Today, to be a millionaire, it's easier for you never work. It's what let's appease our, because they know we're their allies. We're not their subjects. They wouldn't pay their subjects. They know, they just want to know enough about the treaties that suits them as to maintain the whole of the land. And it's a good thing we're having this meeting. I mean, it's what we started out to do. We're still doing it. Sometimes it branches off elsewhere. And I've been around a while and I heard things. And I always keep my ear to the ground. I listen to anybody that has an interesting talk about politics, whether it be English or French, because we're all in this together.
Okay, you mentioned a lot of things there. Like, we'll go back to what you said about the referendum here in so-called Quebec. And what was that? 85?
Yeah.
Okay, in 85, a week before the referendum, what the heck's his name? This guy, he's a professor now from town here. He was in Bridge, Carol Alford. He is supposedly a political scientist. He was on the radio here, the town radio, and there's a noon hour talk show. And they asked him, "Can you give a prediction as to what the outcome might be?" And he said, "Oh no, there's too many factors." He didn't give a prediction. So I was on the radio the next day or the day after, and I talked about it, and I said that Quebec is going to lose by 50,000 votes. There's no guessing there. There's no estimate. There's no guess to it. It's plain and simple arithmetic. And when you know what you're dealing with, so-called democracy, you know the arithmetic that you got to deal with. The arithmetic is 1%. So we knew at that time the population of Quebec, okay, they got to lose by 50%. So we knew that the election for Quebec separating was rigged. Of course, it's rigged. They had too many. It's never going to happen. The French can think that they're going to separate. Every person who was ever a so-called separatist on the highest levels of so-called government in Quebec have all been bullshit liars. They have all lied to the rest of the Quebecois to tell you, "Oh yeah, we're on this agenda." Yeah. It never was. And so we knew that it was rigged. So I said 50,000. Well, you know what happened? They lost by what? 53,000 votes in the Quebec referendum of 95. Does anybody remember?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, do you remember how much they lost by?
Oh, not much. 49,000 something.
Okay, no, it was over 50. Do you remember how much? Yes or no? Do you remember? Okay. The next day after the elections, on the town radio here, now if the people I'm mentioning get wind of this, there was Heo Kirby and Joe Delarone on the radio, and they were talking about the outcome. And they said, well, Gerald Alfred didn't guess, but Stewart got it right on the money. They compared me to Jojo Savard. Because Jojo Savard at the time was who? Who was she?
She was
Comedian.
a so-called astrological woman, but it was bullshit.
Heo Kirby and Joe Delarone, both of them on the radio compared me to Jojo Savard because I got it right on the money. I nailed it. I did not give a prediction. That's the thing you don't know about your own society. That it's not predictable, it is knowable. You don't have to predict. All you gotta know is what powers your society. And then you'll know. But again, the thing is you don't know what powers your society. And like the thing about what you said about, I forget what you said now. But anyways, about everything moving out up to Ontario. The so-called queen, that woman you call your queen, she did not have to worry during the referendum of 1995 because there is history here that you have to go on also, and you know how the things are powered. You don't have to worry you're going to lose by 50,000 votes, which just so happened that they found that a lot of votes were spoiled, which got you to lose by 50,000 votes, which means you actually won. But voting is nonsense. So, anyways, you compile that with previous history. In World War II, where did that woman they called the queen put all her gold? Do any of you know?
Here?
Where?
In Denmark?
Okay. Do any of you know? Yes or no?
Um,
Yes or no? It's simple.
it's very
Don't guess.
big.
Yes
No,
or no?
no.
Okay. If you don't know, again, I am shocked that you don't know about yourself. He mentioned the place where all the gold was put. No. Can anybody guess?
New York.
No. No. It was not in Toronto. It was here in Quebec. She put all her gold here in Quebec. You know where? Take a guess. He mentioned it in his oration. It was the biggest building at the time in the United Kingdom, the Sun Life Building in Montreal. You don't know that. How come? How come I know this?
Well,
I'm sure you all went to school. I'm sure you all finished high school. I'm sure some of you went on to universities. And yet, all the things that I present to you don't know anything about it. You know why? Because you went to school. Because the school is the dumbing down. You know what I finished in school? Does anybody know if I finished high school? I did not even finish grade 10. And I am proud of that. I am proud that I did not finish your schooling. As a matter of fact, I never learned anything taught to me from your schooling or taught to me from any of your people. What I learned all this stuff from is observing you. You observe something, that's the easiest way to learn, right? I could tell you, I'm based on this and I do this and I do that. Okay, you can believe it. But then if you observe me, you will see that, well, I don't do this and I don't do that. And I'm not really what I say. So schooling is a bullshit lie. You want to know the truth? Observe. And so what my mother taught me was to observe you. And the thing that I learned the most about you is you don't know nothing about you. You don't know nothing about you. I was not alive in World War II. Maybe some of you were alive. Oh, no, I doubt it. No, probably not. But you're a lot closer to that flashpoint than I was. Your education was more on that flashpoint of that stuff than my education was. So you should have known all this stuff, but you don't. because of your education. That's why you do not know anything, because of your false education. Again, like was said, in order for two opposites to be, they need a buffer zone between them. You cannot put two opposites in the same place in the same time because one will cancel out the other. And so you cannot put education in the same place where there is a brain because the education will cancel out the brain. And this is why the brains are not functioning because you have education in there. You think education means that you're being, according to the word, you're being educated. You're thinking you're getting knowledge. No, knowledge is in the brain. You put education in there, there is no more knowledge in your brain. Anyways, one of the things that he said too, that when he was young in school, he had to draw color in the Union Jack every day, do whatever. When I was in school, by the time I made it to Cattery School in grade 3, I was in grade 3 or 8, 1970. By the time I was in Cattery School, there was still the edu- uh, the nuns, and every day we had to sing the Canadian anthem. And when that came up, I wouldn't do it. And when I wouldn't do it, I would get sent to the office to get a wooden ruler on my hands. I did it one time, and then I learned. Next time I went to the office, what I did is I walked all through the school, down the halls, and I rubbed my hands on the cement wall because the cement wall was not smooth, it was rough. And I would rub my hands to make my hands all red. And then I go back to the class, and the teacher would say, okay, I'd sit back down. And then when they caught on to me, then they made sure the teacher grabbed me by the cheek like this and pulled me to the office. I'll never forget her name, Miss Barbaria. She was a woman. Uh, she was a black woman from I forget what country. She pulled my cheek, go to the office. It happened one time. And then my father came into the school and threatened. You ever touch my son again? In his language, I'm going to kick your fucking ass. Said that right in front of me to the principal. They never bothered me again. They had religion class. They would force me to sit in there. After that, I had my own special desk. I could sit out in the hall by myself. Everybody else, all my friends, all the people my age, they all stayed in that class. All the people who were in the longhouse too, none of them were in that hallway with me. There was only one other person who made it eventually out into that hallway with me. His name was Ray Barnes. But everybody else stayed in there getting indoctrinated. I did not. Anyways, this is just some of the things that you know that you can see as to how, over the period of time, first in his day, they actually got a color in the Union Jack. What else did you have to do? Do the maple pants. In my time, you see, it just regressed. Well, not regressed. It just eased off a little by my time. And then by my time, my father had to go into the school and threaten them. He threatened the priest. You touch my son again, I'm going to kick your fucking ass. I am proud my father did that for me. Because I seen that nobody else had their fathers do that for them. Nobody else. They all stayed indoctrinated, which is, we can see the end result. The end result here today is all the people who are indoctrinated, they've all given in to that system. Every single last one. There is not a person left in Ganawagi. Whereas, even like what we're talking about, those so-called clay hills, which was dug out from the seaway, which belonged to that woman they called their queen, there was years nobody was allowed to do anything there, right? Do you recall that now where the houses are on that clay hill, on the back side of it, leading to Petticoat Junction, the Adirondack Junction, do you recall that that used to be the first highway down there? That was the highway. So that meant it was already expropriated. Where the highway is now, in between the two hills, here's the two hills, this is where the highway is. The original highway was on the backside of that hill, right next to the railroad tracks. Nobody knows that now. I remember it because as a little kid, I would get up with the sunrise, summertime, my mother would pack me a lunch, and I would go out and I would walk all through Ganawagi. I'd go into the bush, way back into the bushes. I would walk all over the place. As a little kid, 5 years old, I would do this. And my friend Ray Barnes used to come with me. And we know, we're walking down that road on the other side of the Clay Hills. Already, it was an old, dilapidated road. You wouldn't even know it was a road unless you were walking there on it to know there was pavement. People in Ganawagi don't know this anymore. They don't know because they are not. They are not Ganyangahaga. Anyways, that section of Clay Hill belonged to their queen. Nobody can build on it. No one can do anything on it, even past the summer of 90. Now it was released. And this is when the current sellout mayor, Joe Norton, through the self-government process, got bought off. To buy off the people of Ganawagi. Now, before, we used to have, you hit 18, the house was built for you. The last one was built, I think, around mid-60s. It was for one of my friends, Montour family, Curtis Montour. Their family had the last house built for them. And you know what the sellout ban system called them? Welfare homes. So that nobody would want it anymore. It's a welfare home. My friend doesn't probably remember any longer that their family was the last one to receive the free housing in Ganawagi. But from that time, it was free housing. It's supposed to be. Because your queen is supposed to, because of everything that they've done to us, provide for us the housing, the medical. No matter what is wrong with us medical, your system is supposed to provide it. Why? Because you destroyed all our medicines, you destroyed our access to it, you destroyed our knowledge of it. But now, something happened after this. That with medical, there was a person here in town who was a doctor and who was taking advantage. We're supposed to get free medical, but this guy was taking advantage. So you go and see that doctor, he would say, okay, well, it costs you this much. Nobody had money. Like he said, there was no millionaires in town here. Nobody was rich. And so you know what this guy used to say? Okay, sign me over your land. It was illegal, but the Indian agent, Breezebois, worked with him because it's the agenda of genocide under the church, through the church, because land management was managed through them, to have this guy, Jacobs, steal people's land that way, which now is all that land on that side of the quarry, all that land behind the Super Bingo, which now his offspring, which ain't even Ganyagawaga people, his offspring is selling it now for $40,000 an acre. Who is he selling it to? Well, there's a few people, the rich people in Ganawaga, who have already gone down that path of selling out. But it's not designed for the people of Ganawaga. It's designed for the non-native people. Because now, through Joe Norton's self-government, all of that opens up that all laws must comply with surrounding communities, must comply with the Canadian Charter of Rights, which means now all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of people supposedly recognized, repatriated, recognized Métis, which is exactly what Ganawage is since 2015 when they voted to get rid of Mohawk mullers. If you have a Mohawk muller, are you Métis? Yes or no? If you have a Mohawk muller, what are you?
You're Mohawk.
Okay. So who is Métis?
You're not Mohawk.
It's people who are not Mohawks. It's mullers who are not Mohawks. It may be a man, like so many in that elective system who took advantage because their queen said if a Mohawk muller, a Mohawk woman marries out, she's got to get up. The elective system is the process of male dominance inflicted upon us that kills off our Mohawk mullers, kills off our clans. And in the same time, they said any men who marry non-native women, the non-native women come in and they get magically, they get Mohawk status. Magically, they become Mohawks. If you were Mohawk, you are a Mohawk because your mother was a Mohawk, which means you carry a clan. Would you vote to say that to run for a position of leadership that you no longer have to have a Mohawk mullet? Would you vote for that? Who would vote for that?
You're traitors.
Who? Would it be somebody who doesn't have a Mohawk mullet? Only them would vote that you don't have to have a Mohawk mullet. And so the system of genocide, of the elective system, is a slow process because people are dumbed down through the education system because their brain is taken out in place of education. The non-natives education, coming directly from that woman they call the Queen, which is the same education that everybody in so-called Canada got. And so this is how they whitewashed our people. This is how right now Ganawage is officially Métis because they voted out their own mothers. But it's not that we voted out our own mothers, it's that the sellouts who weren't even Mohawk in that system, who don't carry clans, who don't have Mohawk mothers, are the ones who voted. You don't have to have Mohawk mothers. This is how genocide happens upon a people. And what we're describing what happened here in Ganawage has happened all throughout so-called Canada, happened all throughout so-called United States, all throughout so-called Mexico, so-called Guatemala, Honduras, all throughout Central America, so-called Central America, and everywhere throughout so-called South America. This is the slow burn process. It happened to you first. You can, if you know your own history, which you don't, if you did, you'd be able to see the exact same similarities, the exact same things that happened to you back in your homelands where you come from. And this is what got you to have no problem with going into somebody else's lands and carrying out the genocide on behalf of that woman you all call your queen. But your process is to separate from this corruption. And it takes some accepting of some hard truths. to realize not who you are, but who you have become and what you represent in this world. You are the teeth of the monster. You are the claws of the monster. If you want your own heart to guide you, your love, you have to get away from that monster. You have to pull those claws off of you, those teeth out of you, and you have to start repairing. And where we're talking about repairing is what was identified here about everything that he said in the opening, everything we just talked about. Repairing your brain. Because genocide is done through a brain that is genocided upon, that is scrambled, that is genocide in your own brain. An active participant in the scrambling of your own brain every time you take and accept that education. You're accepting becoming a non-human. So it may seem like we said when we started talking this morning, it may seem like, well, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a seaway. That's got nothing to do with the creation story, formation, the league, or the law. It's got everything to do with it because these are the true, real examples of what has happened to not just us, what has happened to you. Because in order for you to be where you are, and I don't mean here, but I mean in so-called Canada, in order for you to be, you are the one that has to inflict these policies. So, when you know that you are raping, killing, and murdering, whether you're aware of it or not, a human to do that is reduced to subhuman. You don't realize that you have been reduced to subhuman. And this goes for everybody from as far north as you can go on Turtle Island to as far south as you can go. All subhumans. For money, you will sit in a helicopter with a 50 caliber machine gun and mow down the original people as they are standing there to protect the Amazon rainforest, standing there to protect their sacred lands, our Mother Earth. You are the impetus behind this. But you are the ones who are attempting to break out of it. There is a lot to understand here. Much more than what we see at the surface. You don't go to the doctor to have him put a band-aid on a severed arm. You go to the doctor to deal with the core issue. This is what we're dealing with, the core issue of how the human brain has been scrambled through that white, male-dominant European human experiment. All brains have been scrambled from there. And this is why you see, they're saying, oh, racism in so-called Canada, racism in the United States, racism all over the place. No, it's not racism in Canada or the United States or racism throughout Europe. It's racism everywhere that white man goes. It is racism from that white man. Because his brain is scrambled. And everything that he does, everything that he touches, through his false education, causes anybody who joins him to kill themselves. And so, the craziest thing that we have seen, well, one of the craziest things is slavery. But what is even more crazy is that the slaves grow up in that white man's mentality to actually carry out the white man's infliction upon themselves. Where that black man, that slave, is more of a white man now today because he's killing himself on behalf of that white man. He is doing it to himself in the streets. He's chewing up his own children. He's chewing up his own women. Think of this. I remember when I was a kid hearing something about a guy called Malcolm X. And I heard my father say, "That's a man." And you know what? That man would not refer to himself as the N word. He would not refer to his women as bitches or hoes. He would not be beating down his own people. That man stood for the true identity of the black people. He was fighting to bring it back up. His own people killed him on behalf of the white man, on behalf of the scrambled brain, because that's what they carried, the scrambled brain. Who defeated the so-called Quebecois in the referendum of 95 to separate? Your own people. We go back to the October crisis. All a lie. It wasn't the separatists that killed Pierre Laporte. No way. It was the mafia that killed him. Because Pierre Laporte was, what was he? Do you remember the position that he held?
He was the deputy of some
Minister of Transport. At that time, early 70s, Minister of Transport was dealing with what? All these big new highways that were being built all over Montreal, Quebec, the new bridges, everything. Who deals with that stuff? Mafia. It was the mafia that killed him, and they put it on the separatists. Because the separatists, like I'm telling you right now, you don't know how to detect an infiltrator between you because you don't even know who you are. And so the separatists at that time didn't know how to keep out the infiltrators, and because everybody in your society is always bought off. This is a repeat thing all throughout so-called Canada. That's how they got the Alberta tar sands. That's how they got this chaos happening right now south of that imaginary border between so-called United States and Mexico. This is the chaos they're creating right now. It's a duplicate. It's always the same thing. It's just that your brain is replaced with a false education and there's no memory in there. And I know it because we are proving it. Because everything I ask you, you remember? No. You know what it is? No. You should be shocked to hell about everything that is being exposed here. You should literally be shocked to hell. Anyway.
I got a few things I want to touch on, but while we're talking about this, here when Quebec was separating, it was, sure it had to do with the Quebecois, but who was pushing the Quebecois? Does anybody have an idea who it was? No? Wasn't it Benny? It was the Americans. Yeah, you look at me like this, Americans. You want to know a history lesson? America would not be America today had it not been for the French. Every successful French general was, every successful American was a French general. Yeah, Lafayette, all those guys. Some of them were pirates, but they were French generals, and they were trying to get away from the Queen. They were trying to get back at the Queen. So what's the best way that they do is they get with the colonists, and they said, "We'll show you how to win a war." And in winning that war, they had the natives with them. It was people of the Five Nations too. You're partly right when you said that. And so they had a lot to do with that referendum to say start all kind of trouble and get the people aggravated. See, at the time, before there was like the United States became officially closed, there was a window of opportunity, and I learned this from a separatist. He says they gave the people in Quebec a chance to cross over on a certain day, and you'd be, if you were a Dubois, you crossed over, you became Woods. If you were a Bois Vert, you became Greenwood. So these are the French people who are your cousins. They're the ones that were helping you to start this revolution, but to start to separate from Quebec. But you think they were saving, once they got the land, they were going to give it to them. What did they want? Did they want the Frenchmen? You think they really wanted to put the cloth?
I think they probably want us to separate it so they can buy off like they bought our.
She just said it. She said it. I was waiting. I didn't think anybody would get it. There's something more valuable right now on the planet than water. You can have stacks of gold, but you can't drink it. But if you look at Hudson's Bay, where is it? It's borders on many provinces, but it's like a tap. James Bay is the water tap. But the Americans need that water bad. So that's why there will always be trouble in this part of the territory. And it's not for the gold. It could be stacks of gold and oil. It's that water, and we all know it now. Everybody's carrying a bottle of water today. But this is the truth. And the French, they gave that gift of the Statue of Liberty. And the Americans thanked them for it because they knew it and they let them build it on their. Why would the Americans let them build on their land? Because they helped them win the war. They helped them get independent. The 13 colonies were at the time, if you see the structure of the land, was the Americans were living on, those were the original 13 white reservations. It's the only time a white man had to live on a reservation because he was surrounded by Indians. Now the coin just flipped where we're surrounded. You seeing the picture now?
Well,
if you live long enough and if you listen to, that's where I give thanks. Not to, I went to a Protestant school, which was, I had to learn how to paint the Union Jack. And I have friends of mine who were mostly Catholic and they went to Catholic school. And we'd have these arguments, They say, well, what'd you learn? I said, well, I learned the Commonwealth. So you learn geography. I love geography. So I learned my geography. And I said, what did you learn? And they didn't really know how to answer. I said, you know how to pray in Latin, but you didn't know what they were saying. I said, yeah, at least I maintained my language. I was lucky to hang on to that, which was later solidified by, remember Roy Wright used to come here? And we were talking one day, and he said, well, yeah, you say some things like, he's a professor from Boston College. He's a Mohawk speaker, though. He's not a Harvard speaker. Yeah, he's a linguist. And he said, all you guys that didn't go to school, he said, you're fortunate you didn't go to school, or he says you wouldn't have learned nothing. You wouldn't have retained your language. So he says, you made a wise decision. I said, well, yeah, I had to make a decision, and I think I made the right one. And he says, the thing about going to school, he says, there was a book there, and he says, this is education. He says, you're the smartest person in the world in that book, but he says, if you throw that book in the fire, all your knowledge just went. And he said, I'm in that system. I have to support it because that's where I get my bread and butter, or my bread buttered or something. And so he says it's actually, it was beneficial to me, but not to you. He says any people who didn't go to school are still holding the roots to where they come from. So he was like calling me stupid but smart at the same time. So, but we got along really well because he could speak the language very, very well, but to his limitations. And he said what they're trying to do is eliminate the old the Harvard words to put them out of existence, and then just keep the sanitized words. And that's in our words. In Ganyagya, we say Yowana Netskas. Soft words. Just soft words don't hurt. Piercing words are stuff that has to be said to somebody who's selling you out. And they're the ones that get hurt. In your language, you must have piercing words that you'd like to taken out of the dictionary because it's if you want it taken out of the dictionary, it's because you're the one that's the seller. The mirror has just been put in front of your face, and it's happening to all cultures. So yeah, I said, well, I'm kind of lucky. I was brought up under that basically British system, which I didn't like. But when I thought about it, it's true. I won the battle, but I lost the war. I'm still there, you know. I'm in a POW camp called Katawag. And I guess that's all I have to say for now. Now,
I'll say no to you on that. I'll say you are not a prisoner in the POW camp because the prisoner in the POW camp is here in the mind. I'll say you and I are probably the last ones that are not the prisoners in that camp. Now, a lot of people will say, "Yeah, who do you think you are?" Like, oh, like they are. But we all know the reality. Everybody else who says they are, like we consider the so-called warrior society, they were created through the band council. That they belong to the British crown. They function for that woman they call their queen. So the others who call themselves who are handsome ladies, they are Christians. They willingly accept what their queen rams down their throat. We are the final ones. And when you think of your path and my path, our paths were not united like that. I know you did not grow up in the Longhouse. I did. I did not grow up with the language. You did. So we are truly, we're the ones that kind of slipped by, slipped through the cracks. We are the fortunate ones. But we don't consider ourselves to be fortunate and take that fortune. No. We see that the rest of our people are enslaved. And everything that he is doing and what we are doing together is to free those people. And the fact is that these people do not want to get out of the cage. So we cannot free them by talking to them. There's only one way to free them. And that's by talking to you. Because the reality is, you are the ones that make that cage. And so we have to stop you from being that cage. So we're in a process of reciprocity here. Where, like he said, and like we know, we need each other. You are finding you don't need us to teach you how to grow corn. You don't need us to teach you medicines. You need us to restore your brains so you can function, so you can become human again. And again, this applies to absolutely everybody. Everybody that is here in the so-called Americas. This is how we will set all of our people free. Not just the people here who are the caged ones, but we're going to set you free also. Those who are forced to be subhuman jailers of humanity. Okay, what we'll do is we obviously can't get into in the time frame now. So what we're going to do is we'll hey, no problem. We'll pass this around, and if anybody has anything to say about whatever, I'll finish it with this. That the reason why I went off on this tangent this morning is because I think I mentioned this a while ago about dreams and all of this. Last night I had a really active night of dreams. I was in the back of the quarry and I seen a fox with a raccoon in its mouth, but it was running on the water. It wasn't ice. It was running over the water. A fox with a raccoon in its mouth. I'll just leave it there. That was a dream that I had last night. Very important. Somebody is going to send something to us in relation to this. So if there's anything you have to say, well, there you go.
I had a dream too last night. I had a dream last night, and it was because I'm clean. I'm always cleaning my house. I'm always cleaning. A bunch of men came in my house, and they had gum rubber boots with mud on. And I just remember getting up, and I said, "This is the last straw. Take your boots off." And he said no. And then I was ready to fight. I woke up. But that means something else. Though. It's not my house. Everything you talked about in the haunted with that, but that's my house, and it's somebody's dirtying it up. It's got to be cleaned, and I guess I got to be the one cleaning it. But I need your help. And then later on, I'll say something, but I said too much already today.
Hi, my name is Sylviane, and I'm the daughter of Fleurette, the granddaughter of Cecile, and the mother of Roxanne. Yesterday, I hesitated to pass on the feather because I was trying to remember what else I needed to say, and it was my dream of yesterday. And what I dreamt about was a wolf and a cat walking beside each other. And to me, and it was funny because I had just woke up and I just closed my eyes for a fraction of a minute and I woke up again. But that was the vision I had, and the sentiment around it was that the wild people who we are working with, nature, and the domesticated people, which were all colonized, will have to walk beside each other like the wampum that was once given between us. And so that was the association of my dream that I made. Thank you.
I'll say something on that right away. Is that as soon as you said that, what I see is that the wolf is the people here, the original peoples of Turtle Island, and the cat is the people of the Middle East. That it's those two that got to work together because the corruptions that started from there, there are still people holding on to the truths there that are fighting to the death in peace and love. And that it's us that must walk together in this world.
I'm Monique. I am the daughter of Kiki, the granddaughter of Ella and Rita. And I wanted to speak about my dream last night. My grandmother, Rita, was in my dream. She came and spoke to me last night. And there's a very strange, well, not strange, but there's a coincidence that my sister on the other side of the ocean, her grandmother died last night. So there's a big connection here. My dream was about my father that didn't want me to navigate across the seas. He said, you have to stay on the land. And my grandmother always told me in real life that I should always need to cross the seas because there's something that needs to be repaired in this world. And it's funny that Elizabeth is here with us today. She's coming from across the seas, and my grandmother speaks to me last night, and sleeping next to Baba, and my sister's grandmother died last night, and so I see a big connection. And in my dream, I had to cross the seas, even though my father was telling me that I shouldn't. But my grandmother always said, you have to. And in my dream, she was there saying, remember what I told you, you always need to cross the seas. There's something that needs to be repaired. And Sinan brought a rock to the longhouse that is a broken heart, that is a broken rock in two. And I always felt since I'm a little girl that I'm always stuck between two worlds. because I come from here and I also come from Ireland. So my heart is always kind of like in two different places. And yesterday, when Stuart was speaking about that rock, it became very vivid in my dream last night that I had to go restore that rock that's been broken. And I had to take a piece of rock, but it wasn't that color. It was a green. It was like an emerald green. And it was really, really shiny. Like in the dark, you can hold it in your hands. And it was like shining, like a light. And I had to take this rock and I had to go navigate by myself across the sea to bring back that rock and put it back in the mountain. So, as everybody knows, what's happening with Mauna Kea right now, the original people was trying to protect sacred land because they want to put a telescope like we're doing here trying to save Grandmother Moon from colonization. So I feel that there's a big connection here with this rock that you brought. That's exactly what my dream is about. Is I need to go back and restore and bring that rock back to where it's supposed to be so we can put things together to restore something. It was a bit like I don't know how to explain this. It was like it was like a mission that my grandmother and Sol's grandmother told us to do. But right now, me and my sister have to be separated and be in two different places because there's something that needs to be restored. So my dream was to really, just go through those seas, but it wasn't easy. But at the same time, it was, it was like it was a lot of like army bird. It was really big. It kind of looked like an eagle, but it was blue, and it was telling me to not be scared because I was kind of scared to navigate by myself because the sea can always like have turbulence with winds and give you a lot of challenge. And we all know that we've been going through a lot of challenges. So that bird was like confirming me that I should not be scared and that I'm strong enough. And I have somebody here last night that told me that I was a strong person. And so maybe you were the blue little bird on top of the sea, um, telling me to just continue my as we say. Um, so yeah, it was all about restoring two nations together, like those two rocks that's broken, and put them back together in a sacred land. So thank you very much for listening.
Hi, my name is Hans. I'm the daughter of Giselle and the great daughter of Angelina and the great granddaughter of Emily Loisel. Um, I have sleepless, dreamless nights these days because I dream with my eyes open every time I look at you. For me, each and every one of you, just, I don't know, my mind goes, my spirit just flying into your realms, and it just, it fills my heart a lot. Um, the first few days that I was here, I cried a lot, just looking at you and just thinking about what we are doing and how we can change the world. And realize that it has to go through life, you know. And I know you guys all have a lot of love to give into the city. And you're very good at it. Um, During the event that occurred yesterday night, something came up to me that within my family, for us to get into heaven, they were like our gods. Um, and how I know this like I was trying to tell them, I'll come. I know this because I was young when this occurred in our family. It's because, and when I ask myself about it, the picture that comes to my mind is all the gathering within my family, uncles and aunts that were, talking about issues and politics and everything. And every time they were confronted with the dead road, one of them would say, "Oh, let's go to see the Mohawk," and they'll tell us what to do. And although some of them must have gone because then the next party they were talking about it again. And some of them didn't agree, and some of them said, "Yeah, it's a good thing." But at the end, they always said they were always decided to go with you because they knew you were always right. And for me, when I came here for the first time in August 21st, with the eclipse and stuff. I was there before, but like my brain was scrambled, you know, and I've suffered a lot, and thanks for Maricode that helped me to go through this the first time. I was kind of almost dead, and my body was like you could see that I'm not completely recovered. But my feet remember being here, and I was just like going like this, and I was trying to be in the moment because there was something going on, and I wanted to be part of it, but at the same time I was elsewhere. I want to think when I'm addressing to you, Stuart, I'm actually addressing to the Domingo Haga. That's been like that in my blood and in my family. I never like single you out as you yourself alone. For me, it's the whole nation and the whole history behind it that is very dear to my heart. And it was a kind of a struggle to install myself here because of my physical condition, all of you know. And I uh, I went through a lot of not only emotion, but as my brain is pretty particular, I can go in so many rounds, and it's hard for me to communicate that to anybody because you gotta be kind of somebody like me to understand. And as you all know, Janet came to visit us, and we were all happy about this. It was she's part of us too. She comes in our Zoom session, and she's coming from very far, and proper to bring it up. But we had a lot of a very important realization, her and I'm pretty sure that it would be a good idea for us to get this clear. But there's other things I want to say about what you guys were talking about the school. I mean, you all know how in Quebec, or so-called Quebec right now, the schools are destroyed. Children are living in molds. I mean, they're freezing sometimes. They're crowded in the classes where there should be only 12 and they're like 13 and 14 with so many people of different backgrounds, and some people are have mental illness, some are just new here and they don't understand what's going on, and they're filled up with propaganda. That's not school. It's and remember this. I lived in Lachine prior to living in Shomide, and next to my landlord, actually, the lady there, she had a son and a daughter, and they were both in the teaching school in the English community. And
as I get to know them and exchange, specifically with the daughter, I realize how much the English children have so much more than we do. And they were taught the history completely different than we were. There was an English woman that lives in my building. She was telling me uh, uh, the way that she learned history, and it was completely the opposite of what we learned. So this is really to set to make us fight against each other. And while we're fighting amongst each other, then all the 1% and whoever's the crooked one are just stealing everything from us. So the two wampum has to really be you know, that's our how do you say that? What? Well, connected in beautiful a lifeguard, yeah, because we can talk amongst each other about this and realize that we're not enemies. You know, we're just human beings that are lost and controlled by all these stupid people that just wanted to be in the having things instead of being things. But what I understand is if we have peace and if we have everything that, the great law of peace is making us see that we can have, I mean, economically speaking, we should be even richer than being in war. I mean, that's why when the Spanish came here, they stole all the golds from the Mayan people and everybody because the Mayan could actually collect golds everywhere. They were well organized and everything was in profusion, and if there's a fire. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up, and I think I'm gonna leave the mic to somebody else. But you know, uh, thank you for the Gninga Haga to uphold the humanity because you can save the world like that. We can all save the world being following your example and coming back to our senses. Oh no. No.
Listen, Brenda, I have two things to say. First, it's a dream I made maybe a year and a half, a couple of months more than that, just before you came to my place after my, I would say, isolation time. When you came to see me at the house. So it was maybe a month before that in that dream. So in the dream, when it's nighttime and sleeping in my bed, and all of a sudden I'm awakened by a noise, chains that are hit together. So I'm in my room in the dark, and I look up and I sense human presence around me, but I don't see it. And the noise and the presence, I feel anxiety up, rising. So I'm scared, and I don't want that person to find me. So I don't move. I in my bed. And the sunrise, now I can see. So nobody's in my apartment, but I'm looking for where that sound comes. You know, there's that person hiding. So, I'm looking everywhere, and finally I look in the wall and I see some cracks. So I come closer, I look, and I find there's a room, a hidden room next to mine. So I look and I manage to go in the room. And in that room, it's a torture room. So that's the change I heard. Because when I go in, there's chains and knives, and it's a torture room. But the maniac is not there. But the room is there. So I know that the monster you talked about is living around me. So at that time, I woke up from that dream. It was a nightmare. So I called my sister and told her the dream. And that's when I decided to move. And that's also when I decided to leave the doctorate. And that second time, it's also because I was trying to explain that to Richard, to our new friend, and he didn't understand maybe because when I told him I left the doctorate for all that was discussed today, the education system that is missing on that. And when I told him that maybe you thought I didn't finish the doctorate because of the free Brexit, and so spontaneously told me, oh, but where do you think you're about in the pieces? Maybe I could help you to go back. And I jumped on this and I said, I don't want to go back, Richard. And so now I think that if he listens to the light, he would understand better because it's all about that. It's all about the monster living in our brains and the education that is making this monster live.
Hello, my name is Marie-Claude. I am the great daughter of Yvette and the daughter of Francine. Thank you, Roger. It was such a powerful, like to observe you speaking to one another. It's truly, I just want to say, it's a true honor to see that. I don't have the words to explain what it creates in my brain, my squashed brain, but I'm truly honored to be here. Just confirmation after confirmation that I have very young wished for this reality to come about. Like there was something in me that searched for this understanding, the complete understanding of why things were the way they were, and just to be here. I'm absolutely certain that I am absolutely at the right place at the right moment. And again, I'm just shaking with that energy that just wants to correct things, that just want to do the right things, that just want to share what we are all experimenting together, this sacred moment that we are all living together, that we know in our hearts can bring the change that we want and the correction that we want and the peace that we want. And I want to thank you all for that. And thank you, my mom, also, that has the courage to come here and experiment that also. And just truly filled with gratitude. Nyawagoa. To.
I'm going to speak loudly because I hope, and I'm pretty sure my voice will
You
reach
better
the
take
microphone.
that because for the mic.
Okay, je vais utiliser le micro. I'll use the mic. And I'm thinking back to things that I've remembered, that I've been prompted to remember, which I'm happy uh, that my memory is functioning. It takes me back to the first referendum days, or to meeting people that were the protagonists in the October crisis. I had a very interesting supper with Jacques and Paul Rose, that one of my students, when I was teaching at UCAM, brought me to meet. It was kind of a gift that they gave to me as I was leaving Montreal to go study overseas. And I couldn't help but think about the expression. I remember Paul better than Jacques, but Jacques was there too, if I remember correctly. And anybody that's been in the prison system, anybody that's been in, had to live what he had lived, anybody that had lived what Paul Rose had to live or had lived, and which led to prison too, I think would show you the kind of expression, a facial expression that anybody could understand. That would be kind of a signature of who that person was at that particular moment of time. This was in 1981 when I met him. But I have memories, so many memories with Recital of the 95 referendum, and of the first referendum too, because I do remember when the gold was used as a threat to the Quebecois. And every time I walk by the Sun Life building, I still have a strange feeling. To this day, I still have a strange feeling when I walk by the Sun Life building in Montreal. What I wanted to share really, and I'll share this quickly, and I've been thinking about this past a couple occasions. I wanted to give the opportunity yesterday, and I would be as brief as possible. But I've been thinking about this for a day or two, and this just has been jogged in my memory again. But I'll say it quickly because we're in a world of information overload, and we are using techniques. We are kind of like using the snake's venom to cure the snake's bite, because we're living in a world where there's way too much information. And as I said upon my thesis, my doctoral studies in the 1980s, leaving from Quebec just after that meal with Jacques and Paul Rose, one of the subjects that I was interested in pursuing in communication studies was the visual pollution, the visual propaganda. There's a lot of words and there's a lot of propaganda left and right. just look at society today and look at the visual propaganda. I couldn't imagine that I'd be, through just the path that I was on, introduced to the information highway, the literal birth of email, where it became manufactured, or if you will, designed, and other than being in the American military laboratories and in the American Army, the email revolution took place in France. And I was front and center. I was in the basement. I followed it for about 7, 8 years, from one user to millions of users, from one company to hundreds of companies, and it gave me a pretty good indication of what the .com revolution would be much later on in history. We're talking about history. We're talking about everything. I believe if it's talked about and remembered the right way, is real. So the one thing that I just wanted to acknowledge here is that these messages are going out from here, from the Gayagi Aga, from the traditional council around the world, and there are different, obviously, continents, languages. There are different uh, uh, memories that the whole world just can't automatically share here. It would take a long time, and I'll just end in saying that this evening and tomorrow, because it's the commemoration of the first atom bomb. Uh, Luckily, so to speak, there were only two, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they were only 3 days apart. One was on the 6th of August 1945. The second was on the 9th of August in 1945. Okay, and since this is about the Guyana Asaragoa, the Great Law of Peace, and that from here the roots of peace go from the pine tree that I'm looking at to the four corners of the earth. I hope that what I'm saying is really super well directed, in the sense that we uh, share this responsibility for too much information. Everybody knows what that means. Temptation not to have the courage, not to have the energy, and also sometimes to appear like going against the current when you know in your heart you're really going with the current. So that your own actions, your own beliefs, though they might be substantiated by the collective if they're ever brought to the center for examen, for study, that you know in your heart what you are doing is what needs to be done for peace, for love. And we've heard that, and I believe that the love and the peace coming from all of this, okay? So that the thing that I learned very young, as Stuart has spoken about youth too, is because I've my mixed Irish and Japanese origins. And I've been in both countries. Um, Very interesting experience, short ones in Japan, but even and in Ireland too. But I've been in both countries, and I've been overseas elsewhere too. Okay, when you, as a youth, as a baby, even you know that you're in your true identity. There's always something in you that resonates when someone starts coming at you, and that could be an adult, 50 years old, and you're like 1 year old or 2 years old. But there's always something that resonates, in my opinion, in the human being that tells you that your identity is being attacked, or that even someone is trying to modify your identity. There's just something in our ways of understanding and the way that we remember things that are there as a safeguard. We might not be conscious, we might not be able to articulate it, but we know what's going on. So it's, in other words, it's a feeling. So whenever one is um, uh, experiencing a feeling that something is a little bit odd in the way that our understanding is taking place, it might be a good thing. I believe it's a totally good thing to take a second look and talk about that with other people. Because I believe there's a phenomenon where in the learning process our memory can be it can be totally frozen. It can be totally thrown off track, and And I think it's important to remember these, let's say, just these facts of life. Sometimes we can have that impact on others accidentally. And for that, the occasions that's occurred, I apologize, even in advance. It's going to happen to me, uh, as it does to every person. Either you're on the receiving end, you're on the giving end. But that's where this sense of just being able to understand the humanity comes into things. And I'll just end off on that. I really think this has been another good human exchange. And I have some factual information, if it is factual, but I won't go into it now. But about the Seaway corporations on both sides of the so-called U.S.-Canadian borders, and I have some uh, very current information that came to me via Facebook about a new another transportation project that involves runner water. But I'll speak about that in the off time because it's coming not from me but somebody else through the people of the community that are you know are are our place of visit and where we're visiting now. So
Okay, no need to say anything else here. We've all, I spoke enough. We know it's lunchtime, but we know that from yesterday we identified that today we're going to break at lunch. We're going to end at lunch today in order to get other work done around here, to get other things done that's necessary to do. So tomorrow, well, for today, we end now. If anybody is paying attention or watching on Facebook or on the internet, on YouTube, that we are not coming back this afternoon. We will be back tomorrow morning. The only thing to do now. One of the others that got away and tried to unhold, listen on hold, it's time to close today. So the one is here after. Then we know that. But you know what? That one, what other awakened to me, so what you're going to do. For those of you that are here, so you can this is what this is what I used to do. And those who are Chicania Daragero, the Caceroons, the Ganawabuha, the aquatic life that cleans the air. Then if we are in a heat there, go with the Haradi, the Ghost here, and also peaceful thoughts. And we will miss you until Senora Tiswaget, okay, until you return. Only the other Never get here.